Chapter 13:13. A top-grade black dog. The black dog's arrival was truly sudden. By the time everyone sensed its presence, it had already sunk its fangs into the arm of the man the Holy Maiden called the demon race's youngest general. The general didn't even have time to react. The black dog yanked hard, ripping off the general's arm. Next, everyone heard the general let out a mournful wail. Purple blood gushed out of the dog's severed arm. The dog spat it out onto the ground, its pitch-black eyes glinting with a menacing light. It was half as tall as a grown man, and its back was hunched. Its tail rested on the ground as it circled around Yi Zichen, staring intently at the general. From time to time, it would growl threateningly. At the same time, whether it was Skyspan Academy's student societies, the Fox Clan, the Dragon Clan, the Vermilion Bird Clan, or the Celestial Dog Clan, everyone who was on good terms with Yi Zichen rushed to his side and protected him. They looked around vigilantly, searching for anyone who might pose a threat to Yi Zichen. This guy. Yi Zichen's chest heaved violently. The Holy Maiden had pushed him into the teeth of a storm. She'd definitely find out who the Xianyuan sword and Yao Ceiling Pagoda belonged to. Jackdaw and the others had gone to the lower realms for the sole purpose of fighting over the Xianyuan sword. The situation had been dire, so Yi Zichen had no choice but to reveal the Yao Ceiling Pagoda to the world and use its Yao to intimidate them. The Holy Maiden had personally asked Yi Zichen to spare the demons. She'd definitely know about the Xianyuan sword and the Yao Ceiling Pagoda. Even he hadn't expected the Holy Maiden to reveal everything to the public in such a manner in such an occasion. At first, he'd assumed his identity would be exposed by the two diviners the Yao and God realms had invited down to the lower realms. Then, there was the general's sudden attack. Just now, Yi Zichen truly felt his strength fall short in the face of unexpected situations. If he used the Yao Ceiling Pagoda and Xianyuan sword, he could hold his own against diviners. But all of that depended on his ability to warn of danger ahead of time and make the most logical response. Just now, when the demon general had suddenly attacked, he'd found it difficult to defend himself, given his strength as a Sky Supreme. At the end of the day, cultivation was everything. Although the Xianyuan sword and the Yao Ceiling Pagoda were powerful divine artifacts, they were still external objects. Since that demon general dared to attack in this situation, he was definitely prepared to kill in a single blow. Fortunately, the black dog's appearance saved Yi Zichen's life. Otherwise, his soul might have already returned to the river Styx. However, that black dog felt vaguely familiar. Yi Zichen looked outside. While he was surrounded by the crowd, they also blocked his line of sight of the black dog. This made it impossible for him to judge whether the black dog was what he thought it was. Just as they were about to attack, Chi Mei somehow snuck up to Yi Zichen's side and patted him on the shoulder. Yi Zichen turned his head, only to see Chi Mei's face plastered with a secretive smile. "How does it feel to be exposed? Do you see? You're the center of attention right now. Countless people want to take the Xianyuan sword and the Yao Ceiling Pagoda from you. That's just an appetizer. Look up there. The rulers are going crazy, but I'm sure you gods are trying to stop them." Yi Zichen was in no mood to understand her secretive tone. After his identity was exposed, he was like a baby carrying a huge sum of money. That wasn't all. He even had the words, "I'm so rich," plastered on his forehead, just waiting for those ill-intentioned criminals to come and rob him. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that hundreds of thousands of alpacas stampeded through his heart. "All right, I won't agitate you any further." When she saw that Yi Zichen's expression was truly unsightly, Chi Mei's eyes narrowed into slits. In truth, it's a good thing that the Holy Maiden announced the news at a time like this. Yi Zichen simply rolled his eyes as if to say, "Do you think I'm retarded? It's true. Believe me. Although your possession of the Xianyuan sword and Yao Ceiling Pagoda has been exposed, you'll be targeted by quite a few people with ulterior motives, but at the same time, you'll be protected. Fortune and disaster go hand in hand. Who knows, after today, you might be able to roam the entire god realm unhindered. Chi Mei's words of comfort were met with Yi Zichen's rolling eyes once more. This time, he seemed to be saying, "Do you really think I'm retarded?" In response to Yi Zichen's attitude, Chi Mei didn't pursue the matter any further. There were some things he'd naturally find out later whether she was telling the truth or not. Chi Mei smiled faintly, tilted her head and said, "Let's take this opportunity to get to know each other better. I'm Su Mei of the Nine-Tailed Fox clan. If you feel like you can no longer stay in the god realm after this, you can seek refuge with me. I can guarantee that no one will dare touch you, not even the god, Yao, and demon emperors." "You animal! How dare you injure me?" The one-armed demon general's expression was savage, then vast amounts of purple miasma burst forth from his body. His body gradually grew tall and sturdy, and his delicate, youthful face contorted. Boundless demonic power radiated from his body, causing everyone's pupils to twitch involuntarily. The surrounding sand and gravel rose into the air as if they'd lost gravity. Meanwhile, the demon general was still gathering his strength. Awoof! At that moment, the black dog coiled around Yi Zichen kicked him with all its might. A black shadow flashed, and then the black dog bit off the throat of the devil general. The devil general, who was still in the charging stage, also fell straight to the ground with his eyes wide open. The sudden turn of events stunned the onlookers. Everyone was sure of one thing. If the demon general attacked, the damage he'd cause would definitely be enough to destroy heaven and earth. When the Yaoan god experts saw this, they didn't know what to say. The mighty demon general hadn't even attacked yet, but he'd been killed while he was still gathering his strength. And by a dog that looked like some expert's battle pet. This was probably the most humiliating death in the history of the demon realm. However, when experts fought, they usually waited until their opponent was fully prepared before attacking. For example, when Su Lua released her breath of ice, the Holy Maiden hadn't attacked yet. This was the tacit understanding between experts. There was an 80% chance that the black dog was some expert's battle pet. Since it followed a major power, it should have some understanding of the tacit understanding between experts. However, the black dog didn't give him the chance. It went straight for his vitals, killing him in one blow. Then they looked at the black dog. Even after finishing off the demon general, it wagged its tail proudly. It didn't feel the slightest bit ashamed of its ambush victory. It shook its head proudly as if it had just won a battle, then stomped its foot on the demon general's head. Chapter 13-14. The most tragic demon general, that black dog, was definitely a top-grade one. Only Sky Supremes could reach this level, and they'd lived for at least a few hundred years. But they'd only run into a dog of this caliber a few times. Not only did it refuse to give the demon a chance to attack, it even pissed on his head. This dog's master was definitely a top-grade one. "Damn, this dog is a bit too much." Li Hu couldn't help but snicker. The others were speechless, but Luo Zi's expression darkened. "Don't spout nonsense. This dog can instantly kill a demon general. Of course, it's a surprise attack, but it's still much stronger than us. Even a battle pet of this level isn't something we can casually comment on. Also, how powerful do you think the person behind the battle pet must be to have such a powerful battle pet?" As soon as he said this, Li Hu, who'd been grinning foolishly, hurriedly shut his mouth. He even zipped it shut. The rest of the people's gazes were still on the black dog. After it finished peeing, it even shook its legs. Then, it removed its leg from the demon general's head, then proudly circled the area a few more times. Its gaze was fixed on the demons the entire time, as if to say, "A bunch of trash." The demons were furious. That was their demon general. How could a mighty demon general be humiliated like this? How could they just let it go? The Holy Maiden couldn't help but frown. She stared at the tail-wagging black dog. Look at that demon general's face. At that moment, Jiang Wei frowned and muttered, "Look at that demon general's face." When they heard this, Shui Mo and the others turned to look at the demon general. After the black dog pissed on him, the demon general's face began to rapidly decay. That delicate and immature face gradually disappeared, turning into an incomparably old face. Kuei Han. The rulers fighting in the sky noticed this as well. Qiu Enhui frowned as he called out the man's name. Then his gaze fell on the demon ruler he was fighting. Kuei Han was one of the demon generals who'd made a name for himself a long time ago. He'd made his name at least 10,000 years ago, but unfortunately, he didn't have the fortune of a ruler. He'd spent his entire life trying to break through the shackles of a ruler. Even so, after 10,000 years, it was difficult for him to find a worthy opponent in the diviner realm. He could be said to be the strongest person under the ruler realm. However, the tournament of geniuses required one to become a supreme martial artist within 200 years, and Kuei Han had obviously exceeded the limit. Furthermore, the devil race had purposely disguised him as a newcomer and given him a fake name. What is the meaning of this? The Sovereign Lord didn't say anything. Instead, he unleashed an even more lightning-fast method to break through Qiu Enhui. Kuei Han's death could only be attributed to his bad luck. Indeed, his luck was very bad. Tens of thousands of years ago, he was at the peak of the Deva realm, but even after so long, he still hadn't taken that step. He had thought that he would disguise himself as a newcomer and participate in the battle of geniuses to carry out the demon's plan. But at this time, he was killed by a dog. There was nothing more to say at this point. The bearers of the Xianyuan sword and the Yaoxiling pagoda had appeared. The most important thing now was to obtain these two divine artifacts. It's actually a disguise. When Shui Mo and the others saw this, they couldn't help but frown. This person has probably lived for tens of thousands of years. Why did the demons disguise him as a newcomer? What exactly are they planning? Do you still remember what Dean Xiu told us before we came? Jiang Wei said to Shui Mo, Murong Shui, and the others. This battle of geniuses isn't as simple as we think. What we've discovered might just be the tip of the iceberg. The demons really are shameless. No wonder Dad hates them so much, snorted Shuebebe. The members of the powerful societies couldn't help but frown. Chen Guangfa gulped. Did we miss the main point? What main point? As soon as he finished speaking, Jiang Wei, Shui Mo, and the others sensed a surge of resentment. How could it be him? The holy maiden furrowed her brows. Emoku was Kuei Han in disguise. She had no idea what had happened. The higher-ups had only told her that Emoku would be accompanying her to the battle of geniuses. She never would have guessed they'd lied to her. The other demons were stunned as well, but that wasn't important. Regardless of whether it was Kuei Han or Emoku, the Holy Maiden had mentioned, both were demon generals of the demon race. Holy Maiden, please act. Suddenly, every demon present knelt to the ground. A demon general's humiliating death was a disgrace to the entire demon race. They knew full well that they weren't a match for that black dog, but they had to wash away their disgrace with blood. All they could do was beg the Holy Maiden to take action and punish the dog. What's going on outside? Yi Zichen was surrounded, so he couldn't see what was going on outside. He wanted to use his divine sense to investigate, but he was worried that someone would launch a spiritual attack against it. He squinted and tried to see what was going on outside, but Chi Mei rolled her eyes. Why do you care about what's going on outside? Have you considered my offer? Join you. Yi Zichen looked her up and down. To tell you the truth, your identity really is complicated. Su Mei of the Nine-Tailed Fox Clan, Chi Mei. Which one is your real identity? Both, Chi Mei said solemnly. Don't tell me you don't know that the Five Elements' great emperor's wife is the head of the Fox Clan? Isn't it obvious that I'm a nine-tailed fox? All I can say is that you're stupid. You never thought of that before. Yi Zichen's expression darkened despite himself. He'd never even considered that. Then what should I call you from now on? Chi Mei or Su Mei or whatever. All I care about right now is what you think. Do you want to join me? Said Chi Mei. Didn't you just say that if I really couldn't survive? I've changed my mind. I want you to tell me now. This woman really did whatever she wanted. When Yi Zichen saw how flustered and exasperated Su Mei was, he couldn't help but facepalm and sigh. I refuse. If Chi Mei hadn't said she was a member of the Nine-Tailed Fox clan, Yi Zichen might have doubted her background and decided to join her. But since she was a member of the heavenly Nine-Tailed Fox clan, even though the Fox clan was a large clan. Although the Fox clan was a large clan, if the Fox clan really could disregard the god, Yao, and demon emperors, the Five Elements Great Emperor wouldn't have ended up like that, and the current god emperor, Zhou Wu, wouldn't have been able to sit on his throne so peacefully. Besides, Chi Mei wasn't even the leader of the Fox clan, and his current situation wasn't so dire that he couldn't survive. Holy Maiden, please act. At that moment, the demons shouted once more. The Holy Maiden stood rooted to the spot, her gaze fixed on the black dog. The black dog seemed to sense the demon's request. It looked at the Holy Maiden, and when their gazes met. Chapter 13-15. The demon god's arrival. The black dog seemed to have gained sentience. It bared its white teeth at the Holy Maiden, looking as if it were provoking her. Man and dog stared at each other for a few seconds. The demon experts who'd come to the Battle of Geniuses knelt on the ground and begged the Holy Maiden to help. Wave after wave, the voices grew louder and louder. The Holy Maiden's temper flared at the sight of this battle pet's provocation. She glared at the dog, but the dog refused to back down. It glared right back at her. What are you looking at? So what if I'm looking at you? It was as if they were exchanging glances. That black dog is just too cute, said Dai Xiaoyu. The golden flower of the Appearance Association, Dai Xiaoyu, couldn't help but exclaim. Even though this black dog didn't look as cute as a pet, it had managed to bite a demon general to death, and now it was staring directly into the eyes of the demon race's Holy Maiden. It dares to bark at the Holy Maiden like that? This dog's life was worth it, said Jiang Yong. Instantly, the atmosphere in the plaza changed. The demon experts knelt on the ground and begged the Holy Maiden to help. The other Yaoan gods stood to the side, watching as the dog and the Holy Maiden locked gazes. It was as if they'd forgotten all about Yi Zichen's Yao Sealing Pagoda and Xianyuan sword. That dog. The Holy Maiden's heart sank despite herself. She didn't sense even the slightest hint of fear from the dog. After all, she was the Holy Maiden, the reincarnation of a demon god. Even if she didn't deliberately exert pressure on the outside world, anyone who saw her would still feel an overwhelming pressure. They couldn't help but revere her. However, she didn't sense even the slightest hint of fear from this dog. It was just a battle pet. Not only was it unafraid, but after staring at her for a while, it seemed to lose interest in her. It looked away, wagged its tail, and circled the dead demon general. From time to time, it bared its fangs at the other demons. What's going on with that dog? Who knows where this black dog came from? Didn't it come here to save that guy the Holy Maiden said had the Xianyuan sword and Yao Sealing Pagoda? Is this black dog a demon servant from the Yao Sealing Tower? I heard that when the Five Elements Great Emperor was filling in the Yao Sealing Pagoda, he captured a Yao and forced the Yao Emperor to fight him. It can't be this black dog, right? The experts of the monster race and the divine race whispered to each other, discussing the black dog. The black dog's appearance was simply too sudden. Furthermore, it had saved Yi Zichen's life. At the same time, it was hostile to the entire demon race. They didn't know the black dog's true identity, but they could only guess that it was a Yao servant in the Yao Sealing Pagoda. Rumors spread, and gradually, in the minds of the Shun and Yao, this black dog had become the demon servant of the Yao Sealing Pagoda. The experts of the devil race were still bitterly begging. They were all waiting for the Saintess to take action and take the life of this black dog. Unbeknownst to him, The Holy Maiden had also considered attacking, but for some unknown reason, she was somewhat wary of this black dog. She didn't dare to rashly display too much hostility toward it. Furthermore, the demon general's death didn't infuriate her too much. In contrast, she was even more furious at the fact that the higher-ups of the demon race had hidden this from her. The only reason she could attack was because she was the Holy Maiden of the demon race. That demon general represented the face of the entire demon race. For this black dog to pee on his head was an act of disrespect. Holy Maiden! There's no need for the Holy Maiden to deal with this evil beast. An arrogant sneer suddenly appeared in the sky. Everyone looked up and saw that the sky in the north had been dyed purple at this moment. Purple mist rapidly gathered in their direction. In just a few breaths of time, purple clouds covered up the white clouds in the sky. They emanated a heavy pressure that made it hard for many of the onlookers to breathe. The purple clouds filled the sky, and atop them stood a middle-aged man with sharp horns on his head. He wore beast skin clothing that revealed half his shoulders, and his muscular arms were covered in black stripes. He stood in the sky and looked down at the ground. Never mind the geniuses who'd come to participate in the battle of geniuses, even the diviners felt the pressure on them increase exponentially. That's the god race rulers, who were fighting the demon and Yao experts up in the sky, couldn't help but frown. Just the pressure emanating from the clouds was enough to put them under a bit of pressure. They were all rulers. Although they didn't have a rank, in terms of strength, they were comparable to divine generals. Only a demon god of the demon race, a Yao king of the Yao race, or an emperor-level expert of the god race could make them feel pressure. It's a demon god of the demon race. They quickly determined the newcomer's identity, and their pupils constricted. A demon god was definitely under the god race's surveillance. How could he appear here so easily? But no matter how shocked they were, the demon god had arrived. With the intervention of a demon god-level expert, a group of rulers like them was useless. The Yao, demon, and god race rulers all gave up fighting. The demon rulers hurried to the man's side, put their right hands on their chests, and knelt on one knee. "Greetings, demon god." The other demons also knelt, their gazes filled with reverence. "Greetings, demon god." Their voices shook the heavens. The Yao and god race experts couldn't help but be moved. At the same time, Qiu and Huai and the other rulers returned to the battlefield. With Yi Zichen at the center, they used their divine sense to summon all of the god race elites and staff. The Yao rulers did the same. In an instant, the upper three realms split into three factions. "Hurry up and invite the god emperor's estate," said a few of the god race rulers. The demon god's appearance was already something they could control. Furthermore, Yi Zichen had the Xianyuan sword and Yao Sealing pagoda. He could die, but those two divine artifacts had to remain in the god realm. They couldn't fall into anyone else's hands. "The god emperor is in seclusion," said one of the staff members who'd gone to invite him. "If the god emperor is in seclusion, then don't go to him. Invite Lady Providence or the Shao family's emperor. The current situation is vastly different from before. It's no longer a conflict between the Yao and demons. Rather, both sides want to deal with us." The god race rulers' expressions were grave. "We need an emperor-level expert to step forward. That's the only way to stop them." Judging from the rulers' solemn tones, the diviners realized how serious the situation was. Lu Wei, who'd gone to the god emperor earlier, was just about to send a message when the divine martial academy shone with dazzling light, suppressing the demon god's purple mist. Chapter 13:16. Chapter 13:16. Domineering Xian Ji. This ray of light came so suddenly that no one noticed that it had already landed on top of everyone's head. The multicolored light suppressed the demon god's purple mist, alleviating the pressure on the god race elite. Lady Providence. When the god race saw the newcomer, the experts of the god race also knelt on the ground like the devil race did when they saw the devil god. "Greetings, Lady Providence." Atop the multicolored light was none other than Xianji of the profound pavilion. She stretched lazily, as if she hadn't woken up yet. She patted her mouth and yawned repeatedly. She lifted the kneeling people to their feet. At some point, a divine fruit had appeared in her hand. She opened her mouth and took a bite. Her eyes were filled with disdain, and the corners of her mouth twinkled playfully as she looked at the demon god. You demons really are stubborn. You actually sent you all the way to the capital of the god race. Don't you know that the profound pavilion is in the capital? From Xianji's words, it was clear that she had fought with the demon god before and had won. Xianji didn't care about the mighty demon god at all. She calmly bit into the divine fruit in her hand, then glanced at his crotch. The man's pupils constricted and he instinctively tightened his grip on his crotch. That was the shadow of his life. Back then, Xianji's groin kick had almost caused him to lose his manhood. Given his cultivation level and status, it had taken her hundreds of years to save his lifeblood. From then on, whenever the demon god heard Xianji's name, he couldn't help but think back to that scene. When Xianji saw this, she couldn't help but smile disdainfully. At least you have a good memory. But who are you trying to scare with your pressure? You don't have the guts to let me retract it? Is it because your injuries from back then have healed, and you want me to mend them for you again? Without any delay, the fiend celestial above the purple mist obediently retracted its pressure. The gods and demons instantly felt their bodies lighten. They were filled with dread towards Xianji. Her rebuke made the demon god afraid to disobey in the slightest. How badly had Xianji injured him that year to make him so afraid? At least you're obedient. Xianji smiled faintly and withdrew her gaze from his body. Standing on top of the purple fog, the god-fiend's face turned green. He felt utterly humiliated. He didn't want to be so obedient, but the shadow in his heart made him too afraid of Xianji. In particular, the word obedient made him grind his teeth so hard that they creaked. The people on the devil race's side felt even more humiliated. Demon god. They were the strongest under the demon overlord, the faith of all the demons. However, the fiend celestial on their facade was praised as obedient. The demon god also knew that he had embarrassed himself, so he simply dispersed the purple mist that had been keeping up appearances. He landed on the ground and walked over to the holy maiden. However, Xianji remained in the sky. She wasn't worried at all that the demon god would pose a threat to Yizichen once he landed. Firstly, in terms of cultivation realm, the fiend celestial was inferior to him. Secondly, with the shadow left behind by him in the past, he would not dare to act rashly in front of him. If it were any other demon god of the demon race, she might be a little fearful. However, the demon god in front of her was just a word to her. He was nothing to worry about. Stop hiding and come out. Or do you want me to personally invite you out? Xianji suddenly turned to the south and called out. There's someone else? The god race ruler couldn't help but knit his brows. Given their strength, they hadn't sensed anyone in the south at all. Before long, as the god race ruler recovered from his shock, Xianji turned and chuckled. I wouldn't dare trouble Lady Providence with your presence. The surrounding space twisted violently, and a man in yellow robes stepped out of a spatial rift. He wore a mustache and wore a smile. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back. Greetings, Yao King. The Yao instantly knelt and paid their respects, but the supreme divine beasts and primordial divine beasts didn't react at all. For example, Qi Mei, who stood by Yizichen's side, didn't so much as glance at the Yao King. In an instant the Yao, gods, and demons had all arrived. They could be considered the representatives of the three major factions, the strongest of the three. But judging from the current situation, it seemed that Xianji of the Shen clan held the absolute advantage. You've been watching for a long time, haven't you? You've also lost to me. I really don't understand. What are you higher-ups thinking? You know full well that I'm guarding the central Divine Mountain's heavenly god city, yet you still sent the two of you? Are your people too arrogant, or do you think I can't lift my blade? Xian Ji glared at the Yao King and Demon God from the corners of her eyes like a boss. It was needless to say how embarrassed they were. Tell me, what are you two doing in my territory? She tossed the divine fruit aside, then narrowed her eyes at the Yao King and Demon God. The Yao King laughed sheepishly. I didn't come here for any particular reason. I just saw that you two were here, so I decided to show myself and support the Yao race. You can support us too? Xian Ji's words left the Yao King speechless. He could only laugh drily. Your Excellency, the Yao Sealing Pagoda and the Xianyuan sword. Shut up! The Yao King shouted viciously. He didn't dare offend Xian Ji. Back then, she'd hammered him, right in front of his own home. But compared to the Demon God, he was actually better off. At the very least, he'd been injured physically while the Demon God had been injured mentally. The Yao King's dry laugh made the Yao feel embarrassed and flustered. However, they also had Xian Ji's reputation. After thinking about it, they could only force themselves to relax. The Demon God paused. Xian Ji had truly left a deep shadow in his heart. I'm here for this black dog. After a moment's hesitation, the Demon God's gaze fell on the black dog. Your Excellency, didn't you come for the Xianyuan? Shut up! The Demon God scolded viciously. His original intention had been for the two divine artifacts, but Xian Ji. He really didn't dare offend her. Xian Ji looked playfully at the Yao King and the Demon God. How could she not know why they'd come here? But since they'd already said so, she couldn't be bothered to make trouble for herself. The Demon God was quite pitiful. He didn't dare offend her, so he said he was here for the black dog. She sneered inwardly and said mockingly, Sha Ku, you're a demon god. How come you're getting worse and worse? In the past, you dared to challenge me, but now you've fallen to playing with a dog? Xian Ji, don't go too far. The demon god mustered up his courage and rebuked her angrily. This was in front of so many demons. How could he, a mighty demon god, lose face? All right, I won't scold you anymore. Hurry up and find a dog to play with. Xian Ji pressed her lips into a smile, but she couldn't help but mourn for him. Find a dog? Chapter 13:17. Chapter 13:17. Pitiful man Sha Ku was furious. In the demon race, he was a demon god, revered by tens of thousands of people. He was an awe-inspiring figure among the demons. Even the gods and Yao were wary of him. Unfortunately, he'd run into Xian Ji, a jinx. Moreover, he was constantly mocked by her words and was reduced to playing with a dog. However, he didn't dare to confront her face to face. That kick from all those years ago had left a shadow in his heart. When the Yao King saw the demon god's ashen face, he felt like they were in the same boat. They'd all been beaten up by Xian Ji. They could empathize with the demon god's anger, but he didn't dare retort. He sighed inwardly and could only sympathize. Compared to the monster clan and the demon clan, the god clan members puffed out their chests proudly. The lady was truly domineering. With just a few words, she'd taught the demons and Yao a lesson. They didn't even dare let out a fart. As a member of the gods, they naturally felt honored. When they looked at the other two races, they held their heads high. After teaching a lesson to the demon gods and Yao kings, Xian Ji landed on the ground. When the elites of the Xin race looked at her, their eyes were filled with respect. Lady! The few god race sovereigns bowed towards him and said, Thank goodness you came just in time. Otherwise, we really wouldn't know what to do. Don't be so scared, okay? Xian Ji said disdainfully. You're rulers, after all. Don't you feel ashamed to panic over such a small matter? Lady, you're right. Qiu and Huai and the others smiled apologetically. Come on, with me here, the two of them wouldn't dare to do anything to me. One of you go find the God Emperor. At most, I'm here to intimidate them. We still need him to take charge. The God Emperor is in seclusion, said Lu Wei. Seclusion? Xianji furrowed her brows. Seeing her expression, the surrounding rulers didn't dare disturb her. After a long while, her furrowed brows relaxed. She glanced at the nearby black dog wagging its tail. Then let him go into seclusion. A situation like this required someone to take charge of the situation, and the God Emperor could be considered the best candidate. Given his cultivation, there was no reason for her to think that he wouldn't have foreseen what would happen today. However, since he chose to go into seclusion, it meant that he had a plan in mind. Furthermore, with the appearance of the black dog, Xianji felt somewhat assured. She nodded indifferently at the rulers, then walked into the crowd. The onlookers hurriedly made way for them. Before long, they saw Shuemo and the others, who'd been protecting Yi Zichen from the very beginning. "Hey, why are there people from the demon clan here?" This exclamation was obviously directed at Zhuge Kongming, Xiao Bai and the others. "Greetings, Lady Xianji." Little White and Zhuge Kongming bowed. "Your Highness." Even the titled Fox Queen, Su Luer, revealed a look of respect when she saw Xianji. Even though she was now the titled Queen of the Foxes, she could not forget how Xianji had helped her back then. Furthermore, after she ascended, the first thing she did was look for Xianji. It was Xianji who had sent her to the Nine-Tailed Fox clan. Although they hadn't contacted each other for 100 years, Su Luer had always remembered his kindness. "It's you." When she saw Su Luer, Xianji couldn't help but smile in satisfaction. "Back then, you were just a supreme, but you've grown to your current level. I heard you were titled. Congratulations." "Your Highness, I dare not forget the kindness you showed me all those years ago." It was rare to see the domineering Queen Su Luer treat others with such respect. When the others of the Fox clan saw this, they couldn't help but be shocked. However, there were rumors within the Fox clan that Su Luer had a close relationship with Xianji of the God race. Earlier, when she'd been conferred the title of king, it had caused a huge uproar. In the end, the Fox Empress had to step in and suppress the rumors. Now it seemed that the rumors weren't baseless after all. However, to most of the Fox clan, Su Luer's relationship with Xianji didn't amount to much at all. After all, Xianji herself was a member of the Fox clan, and most of her clansmen relied on the Nine-Tailed Fox clan for survival. However, she seemed to have some sort of grudge with the Yao realm, which was why she'd worked for the God Emperor. Furthermore, he doted on her. Even though the relationship between the Yao realm and the God realm had deteriorated, the God Emperor hadn't stripped her of any of her authority. Instead, he'd increased her control over the God race. Su Luer hadn't forgotten her roots. Xianji was especially pleased. "We chatted a few days ago, Su Qinyan. She couldn't stop praising you. She even said that when the time was right, she'd hand over the position of Empress to you. The Empress is still young, and my talent is shallow. It's better for her to be the clan head." "That's your problem. It has nothing to do with me. The way I see it, it doesn't matter who becomes the Empress." She smiled and nodded at Su Luer, only to see her turn her head in a somewhat doting yet somewhat helpless manner. She looked at a girl standing not too far away, smiling foolishly at her. "Didn't I tell you not to meet him so soon?" The girl Xianji was referring to was none other than Xiao Yuli's reincarnation, Xia Kiki. Although 100 years had passed, Xia Kiki's appearance hadn't changed in the slightest. She was still that cute little girl. Back in time, 100 years ago, she'd transformed into a golden dragon to block Yi Zichen's tribulation, only to be blasted into smithereens by heavenly lightning. At that time, the entire dragon clan thought that she had been annihilated by the lightning tribulation, but little did they know that it was actually the dragon god who had taken her away. Fortunately, the dragon god had intervened in time. Even so, she had almost died. Later, Xianji used a divination technique to find her and pulled her back from the gates of hell. She didn't know that the heavenly lightning had also given her many blessings and allowed her to become a supreme being. After she was sent to the Dragon Clan, her golden dragon bloodline became even more precious to the Dragon Clan. Over the past 100 years, Xianji had kept in touch with Xia Kiki. She'd also repeatedly urged her to meet Yi Zichen later, but he had already seen the situation. The moment Xia Kiki heard about Yi Zichen's news, she immediately ran over. I miss him. Xia Kiki stuck out her tongue and lowered her head, not daring to meet Xianji's gaze. Xianji had told her many times that if she met Yi Zichen too soon, she'd be tainted by even more karma. That wasn't a good thing for either of them. But she hadn't seen Yi Zichen in 100 years. When she heard news of him, how could she possibly endure her longing for him? You guys! Xianji couldn't help but sigh. She looked at the group of people protecting Yi Zichen. Could it be that you owe him? Her gaze swept over Su Yan and the others, and she couldn't help but mutter to herself. Chapter 13:18. This background was too solid. Why did she say they were pitiful? The fated stars didn't need to be said. They existed to protect the Emperor's star from calamity. When the Emperor's star was in danger, they used their own lives to fight for it. As for the auxiliary stars, the founding of any dynasty was the culmination of a single general's success. The auxiliary stars existed to help the Emperor's star rule. Given the current state of affairs, if the Emperor's star wanted to succeed, the auxiliary stars had to pay an enormous price. Most of these people were connected to Yi Zichen, the Emperor's star. In that case, weren't they just pitiful people? Of course, she hadn't divined their fates. She'd already been tainted by far too much karma. She didn't want to spend the rest of her life avoiding it. But even if she didn't count, she'd lived through so many dynasties. Hadn't she realized? When the Emperor's star appeared, the world changed. The current ambiguous relationship between the god, Yao, and demon races most likely had something to do with the appearance of the Emperor's star. Their peaceful days wouldn't last long. Xianji glanced at the Yaoan gods who'd gathered because of Yi Zichen. Her gaze was filled with melancholy. Next, she focused her attention and called out to Yi Zichen, who was still inside. Why haven't you come out when you see your auntie? Are you itching for a beating? Auntie? The surrounding people couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. They'd never heard of Xianji having siblings. Where did this auntie come from? They all subconsciously looked inside. They all wanted to see who Xianji's nephew was. They had to remember this, lest they offend her in the future. Before long, they saw Yi Zichen walk out with an apologetic smile. He scratched his head and laughed drily. Lady Providence. HM? Xianji's eyes widened. Auntie. Yi Zichen laughed drily. In an instant, everyone was dumbfounded. Did I hear that right? Just now, platoon leader Yi called Lady Providence Auntie, didn't he? The members of Anti-Upheaval gulped. Yi Zichen had never revealed any of this to them before. Pang Zheng of the Grizzly Bear Society couldn't help but knit his brows. He'd always assumed Yi Zichen was a kid with no background. He'd only gotten his current strength because of luck. However, he had every right to be proud of his family. But now a Lady Providence was his aunt. Compared to the profound pavilion, the Pang family was nothing. This was a power that even the 9 divine mountains' holy lands had to treat with respect. To think Yi Zichen had such a colossus standing behind him. And who else stood by his side? The Sea of Innocence's Shao family, Murong family, and Jiang family. When all these forces were considered together, Pang Zheng was rather unsettled. He felt like he had to re-evaluate his relationship with Yi Zichen. The other god race, demon race, and monster race were also dumbfounded when they heard this. Lady Providence's nephew. With a background like that, never mind the Xianyuan sword and Yaoxiling pagoda, even if Yi Zichen possessed the Eastern Emperor Bell and the Grand Preceptor's umbrella, they wouldn't dare covet them in the slightest. Who would dare touch Xianji's people? Even if someone really dared to make a move, it would have to be an immortal general, a demon general, or a demon general. Little did they know that they were thinking too much. How could someone of this level dare to touch Xianji's people? Even the Yao King, upon learning that Yi Zichen was Xianji's nephew, instinctively widened his eyes and gasped. Fortunately, he'd only been watching from the sidelines. If he'd really made a move, the scene of him getting hammered 1,000 years ago would definitely have played out again. "That's a good boy. That's my good nephew." She pinched Yi Zichen's cheek. Her doting expression caused the onlookers to hold their breaths. Yi Zichen grimaced. How old was he now? How could someone pinch his cheek like that? However, he knew that Xianji was doing this for his own good. Revealing his true identity would at least help ease the pressure of his identity being exposed. Even so, there were still a few stubborn people in Xianji's profound pavilion who couldn't resist the temptation of the Xianyuan sword and Yaoxiling pagoda. Xianji also knew that she alone wouldn't be able to dispel their desires. "Right, your mother, the Lord of 7 Stars, has gone back. She told me to tell you that she'll come see you in a few days." The Lord of 7 Stars? There was only one in the entire God realm. Her appearance had shaken all of the upper 3 realms. Countless peak-level family clans had gone to great lengths to recruit her. In the end, she'd fallen into the hands of the Society of Saints. At the time, the Lord of 7 Stars only had the appearance of 7 stars, but she wasn't actually one. The clans had only taken a fancy to her talent as a saint, which was why they'd tried to recruit her. But after all these years, not only had she mastered the mysteries of the 7 Stars, but she'd also become the strongest expert in the Society of Saints, second only to great Emperor Chao Feng. The entire Society of Saints obeyed her every word, and she ruled over all the stars. She was even more of a threat to the 3 realms than Xianji. She was actually Yi Zichen's mother? The son of the Lord of 7 Stars, the nephew of the profound pavilion's head. Damn, platoon leader Ye's background is way too terrifying. Even the refined Luozi couldn't help but curse. My goodness, compared to Brother Yi, what kind of family heirs are we? Shuemo, only you, the second daughter of the Sea of Innocence, can compare to him, said Jiang Yong speechlessly. Society head Shuemo is the second daughter of the Sea of Innocence? My goodness, what's going on? Li Hu's eyes widened. They had no idea who Shuemo was. As soon as he said that, Jiang Yong realized he'd misspoken, but it was too late to retract his words. Shuemo nodded. I am indeed a direct descendant of the Sea of Innocence, but compared to Yi Zichen, I'm nothing. Your anti-upheaval is truly a rich and powerful society now, isn't it? You've got the second daughter of the Sea of Innocence and a colossus like Yi Zichen in your society. MOMO, is your group still recruiting? Why don't you merge with our Appearance Association? Murong Shui giggled. Count our Aspirations Society in. Jiang Yong laughed heartily. We have to hurry up and suck up to this kind of thigh. Shuemo could tell they were joking. These 2 societies were the fruits of their labor. How could they just merge just like that? She shook her head and laughed. Everyone was still in awe of Yi Zichen's background. Meanwhile, the Grizzly Bear Society. Society head. The Grizzly Bears were dumbfounded. Yi Zichen's background was no joke. Opposing him wasn't a wise choice. Pang Zheng and Di Long were dumbfounded as well. They glanced at each other. From now on, you're not allowed to provoke Yi Zichen. Everyone in the plaza was dumbfounded. Absolute silence. Their mouths hung open as they stared at Yi Zichen. As for Yi Zichen, he was in the middle of a whirlpool of shock. The Lord of 7 Stars? My mom? Chapter 13:19. A Ruler's Domain. Chapter 13:19. Just this background alone was enough to be mentioned in the same breath as the disciples of the top clans. Yi Zichen hadn't expected his background to be so impressive. When he heard the news, he was no different from the others. No wonder his mother was best friends with someone as important as Xianji. So she was the Lord of 7 Stars. After living for so long, he finally had a chance to return to being a disciple of a noble family. Yi Zichen couldn't help but feel helpless, but also a little excited. Could he be a Silk Pants in the future too? He could beat up anyone he didn't like. If anything happened, Xianji's mother would back him up. I told you, someone as handsome as me can be the main character anywhere. Yi Zichen rubbed his chin and grinned foolishly. How could Xianji not see through his little schemes? She knocked him on the head. She didn't hit him particularly hard, but it was enough to wake Yi Zichen from his reverie. When Yi Zichen looked up, he saw Xianji glare at him threateningly. Instantly, his silly grin vanished. Xianji hadn't said all this so Yi Zichen could point at her and her mother and act arrogantly. She'd done it purely to instill some fear in the hearts of the people here. Even if they went back and told their superiors, they'd have to think twice before attacking. Were they really prepared to face the wrath of the profound pavilion and society of saints? Looking at the expressions of the people around her, Xianji knew that the deterrence she wanted to display was enough. She smiled and stood beside Yi Zichen, then narrowed her eyes at Sha Ku. Just now, Xianji had revealed Yi Zichen's background like a cannonball. Sha Ku was dumbfounded. In his eyes, Yi Zichen's cultivation was shallow, but the profound pavilion and society of saints stood behind him. Even Sha Ku feared them, especially the Society of Saints. It was an organization that ruled over the stars. Every single one of them had the potential to become a saint. Not to mention him, even a demon emperor would have to think twice before making a move against such a colossus. It seemed that snatching the Xianyuan sword and Yaoxiling pagoda from Yi Zichen's hands wouldn't be as easy as he'd imagined. Perhaps the demon emperor had long since predicted this would happen. He'd sent Sha Ku here because he knew he wouldn't dare attack Xianji. That way, he wouldn't provoke the profound pavilion, and he'd confirm Yi Zichen's backer. The demon emperor is indeed the demon emperor. His calculations are really deep. These demon gods were all proud and arrogant. Even in the face of the demon overlord, they might not be able to achieve absolute obedience. Each of them believed that they had the possibility of replacing the demon overlord. However, from what Sha Ku could tell, the demon emperor was indeed a schemer. Perhaps only a few old fellows among the demon gods could compare to him. Sha Ku subconsciously glanced in Yi Zichen's direction. Suddenly, his pupils constricted, and a skull-shaped axe appeared in his hands. Looking ahead, a silver steel ball was shooting toward him at high speed. With a loud bang, the steel balls hit the battle axe. Suddenly, a huge force was transmitted from the battle axe to his arm, causing his hand to tremble and numb. He took a few steps back. "You haven't played with the dog yet?" At the same time, Xianji's light laughter rang out from afar. There were several steel balls in her hand and she was fiddling with them. They were exactly the same as the steel balls Sha Ku had just blocked. She smiled playfully. The demon god's expression darkened, and he stomped hard on the ground. The steel ball embedded in the ground flew into the air. With a wave of his axe, the steel ball flew back to Xianji's side. In the face of the exploding steel ball, Xianji simply smiled calmly and stretched out her hand. A gray and white 8 trigrams spiritual formation appeared in her palm. When the steel bead, which carried endless hostility, touched the 8 trigrams spiritual formation, the force was completely neutralized, and it safely fell into her palm. Not bad. You dare fight back? But since you're quite pitiful, I won't teach you a lesson. Hurry up and go play with your dog or else. Xianji smiled, but she opened her palm. A dozen or so silver steel balls floated in front of her. It was obvious that if Sha Ku hadn't gone looking for the black dog, he wouldn't have just tossed a steel ball at him. He'd tossed the steel ball back, because he wanted to preserve some of his dignity and prestige in front of the demons. If he really did fight Xianji, he could tell from her 8 trigrams spiritual formation that the gap between them was growing wider and wider. In his current state, it would be difficult for him to exchange blows with her. Sha Ku silently turned his head away. It could be said that he was ready to vent his anger on that black dog. But, when he looked at the black dog, the dog actually bared its teeth at him, then turned around to face him with its butt and wagged its tail at him. Sha Ku's face instantly turned ashen. It was one thing to be humiliated by Xianji, but now even this dog dared to provoke him. Ha ha ha, Sha Ku, you really are a pitiful demon god. Even a dog looks down on you. Xianji's perfectly timed mockery was like fuel thrown onto Sha Ku's flames of fury. His fury reached a boiling point. Retreat. The holy maiden acted as if she'd received a warning. She led the demon elites back 100 meters. Boom. The instant they retreated, demonic power surged out of Sha Ku's body. The thick purple mist seemed to declare its sovereignty, invading the surrounding space. You're not so stupid. You know this dog isn't ordinary. You even know to open your domain, snorted Xianji. Sha Ku had absolute control over the violet mist. This was his domain after becoming a sovereign. This was where a ruler's strength lay. After breaking through, any ruler would form their own domain. A domain existed outside of the existing space and was not bound by the existing world. It was a minor world that belonged to a ruler. Within a domain, a ruler was the law, the creator. If he wanted water to flow in reverse, it would have to flow in reverse. If he said this was life, it would flourish. If he said this was death, there would be no living creatures. Inside this domain, a ruler could rule over everything. If a sovereign were to constantly release his domain, he might even be able to achieve true immortality. When ordinary rulers broke through, the talented ones could control an area of around 50 meters, while the average ones could only control a dozen or so meters. Only with a deeper understanding of the Tao of heaven and earth, and as one's cultivation increased, could one expand their domain. Sha Ku's current domain could only be unleashed by a high-level ruler. Anyone who could become a demon god was no ordinary person. Even though he'd suffered under Xianji's hands, he was still someone who could make the entire 3 realms tremble. Of course, this wasn't his limit, but against a dog's. Chapter 1320. If you can't win, run, so this is a domain. The geniuses who'd come to participate in the Battle of Geniuses stared at the dense purple mist with awe and longing in their eyes. Even diviners were limited by the laws. They couldn't move freely. Of course, to truly transcend the laws, one had to break through to the transcendent realm. Transcendence was too far away for them. Even for rulers, it was an unreachable realm. Transcendence was too difficult. In the history of the upper 3 realms, only one person had truly transcended the laws. He was the first Star Lord of the North Star. Everyone else, even the God Emperor, Demon Emperor, and Monster Emperor, were still limited by the laws. Although they were infinitely close to transcending, they couldn't take that final step. Although the chances of transcending were slim, becoming a ruler meant that they could at least truly rule over their own domain, even if they still couldn't transcend the laws. Cultivators. They lived for eternity. They lived to transcend the world. As the geniuses of the 3 realms yearned for a ruler's domain, Sha Ku's domain enveloped the black dog. The moment the domain enveloped the black dog, it suddenly quieted down. Its long black tail drooped to the ground, and its long, narrow eyes stared straight ahead. Shockingly, there was an afterimage in the place it was staring at. The afterimage was like a demon. Outside the purple mist, one could vaguely make out its head, which was more than 300 meters long. It had an all-shaped face and prominent cheekbones. Its large eyes glinted with a menacing purple light, and its gaping maw seemed capable of swallowing the heavens and the earth. Its fangs were razor-sharp, and its long hair trailed the ground. The black dog was staring at this afterimage. Gradually, the black dog became restless under Lin Huang's gaze. It hunched its back warily and circled around in a 2-meter radius. Its provocative gaze vanished, replaced by a very human expression of solemnity. Every now and then, it let out a low, uneasy growl. The black dog stopped, and a low growl filled with ferocity came from its throat. Its sharp claws began to scratch the ground restlessly, its eyes filled with ferocity as it stared at the afterimage in front of it. It sensed the threat posed by the afterimage. It didn't know what the afterimage was for, but it was very uneasy. Do you think this black dog is a match for the demon god of the demon clan? As the black dog faced off against the demon god, Li Hu nudged Luo Zi with his elbow, then shot them a look. Just like before, Jiang Wei's eyes were filled with indifference. His temperament seemed to be very dismissive of everything. Earlier, when the Holy Maiden told him that Yi Zichen had the Xianyuan sword and Yao Sealing pagoda, he'd been slightly surprised. Even when Xian Ji revealed Yi Zichen's shocking background, he didn't bat an eyelid. The others didn't say anything either. They just stared ahead with solemn eyes. I don't think so. Jiang Yong, who also wielded a battle axe, chimed in. Can't it win? It killed a devil general in an instant just now. Li Hu said. Instantly killing a demonic general is a surprise attack, and the difference between a demonic god and a demonic general isn't just a tiny bit. As you can see, this demon god's domain can be said to be quite strong. Under the domain, he is the ruler. Although the black dog's cultivation level was unknown, it shouldn't have reached the level of a demon god. If even a single battle pet can stand up to a demon god, what kind of person is its master? Jiang Yong asked. What should we do then? It should be on our side. Shouldn't we help it? With that, Li Hu nudged Yi Zichen with his shoulder. Platoon leader Yi, do you know this dog? It seems to have come to save you. If you know it, then ask the Empress to save it. To be honest, Yi Zichen felt like he had seen this dog somewhere before. When he saw the black dog, he felt a sense of déjà vu. However, regardless of whether they knew each other or not, since they were here to save him, there was no reason for him to ignore them. Given his cultivation, he was no match for the demon god. He subconsciously glanced at Xianji, but all he saw was an expressionless face. It was clear that Xianji would not interfere. Jiang Yong shrugged at Li Hu, then turned to Li Hu. If something really happens to this black dog, its master will come out. You don't have to worry about it. Furthermore, this black dog's cultivation is absolutely high. It should be able to last a few hundred rounds against the demon god. The Holy Maiden paid close attention to the demon god and the black dog. She really wanted to see just what level the black dog was at and why it had struck fear into her heart. The others did the same. They were all waiting for the black dog to make its move. The black dog let out another low growl. The onlookers couldn't help but arch their brows. Was it about to attack? The demon elite's gazes were solemn, but the Yao and God race cultivators were filled with anticipation. This was a demon god, not a demon general. If the black dog could bite the demon god to death, it would be a good thing for both sides. They watched with rapt attention, all looking forward to the reappearance of the black shadow. They never would have guessed. Woo! The black dog stared at the afterimage for a while, then let out a whimper. The next moment it wagged its tail, turned its head, and ran away, whimpering all the while. Damn it, is it begging for mercy? The God race and Yao race powerhouses couldn't help but ridicule. Was this black dog that didn't even put up any resistance and was just about to run away? Was it really the same black dog that had a look of disdain on its face and provoked the entire devil race, standing on the devil general's face and pissing on him? The difference between now and then was too great. This time, it was facing a demon god, a level higher than the demon general. But at least it had put on a fierce front. Now that it had run into the demon god, it should at least take a bite or two. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that this dog was a piece of work. Those who'd been waiting for the black dog to create a miracle were speechless. They stared at the fleeing dog and couldn't help but sigh. Run? Could it really run? It had already entered a ruler's domain, but it still wanted to run? Wasn't that a joke? If it didn't resist, how was that any different from waiting for death? They could already imagine what would happen to the black dog. A few people were even hoping that it would make a final, desperate counterattack. Even if it couldn't kill the demon god, heavily wounding it would be a good thing. However, the black dog was determined to run away. It kept whimpering and barking at the same time. Sha Ku stood beneath the purple mist, a savage grin on his face. Ever since he'd met Xianji, he'd been suppressed. He'd lost all face, and the rage in his heart was enough to burn down the entire divine mountain. He needed something to vent, and the black dog before him was. You want to run now? It's too late. As soon as he spoke, the blurry figure in the purple mist opened its bloody maw. The fleeing black dog turned its head. When it saw the gaping maw, it ran even faster, its whimpering growing louder. Die! The gaping maw swallowed the black dog whole. The dog looked like it was about to cry. It howled at the sky. Didn't you say you could handle it? Now you're asking me for help? A disdainful voice suddenly appeared in the sky. When the black dog heard it, it howled a few more times. As long as you're afraid, that's good. Damn it, I told you to advance, but you're so arrogant. Do you know who's boss now? The black dog howled again. Get down, you little puppy! A gust of wind howled through the air, making it difficult for everyone to open their eyes. By the time the wind dissipated, the demon god's purple mist had been completely dispersed. Chapter 13:21. That place, that frightening place. As the purple mist dissipated, the world became clear once more. In the purple mist, the afterimage with its bloody mouth opened naturally dissipated from the world. It had been created by a demon god and wasn't recognized by the laws of the world. It could only exist within the demon god's domain. The domain had been destroyed, and the soul had been destroyed. Everything that had been devoured by the demon god's domain was restored to its former state. Not only that, but one could even smell the faint scent of grass on the wind. The demon god's domain has been destroyed. The eyes of the onlookers trembled as if they'd just experienced an earthquake. Their eyes were filled with shock. A single gust of wind had destroyed the demon god's domain? What realm was this person at? No. This was beyond the realm of mortals. This was a god. If the experts of the god race had reached the supremacy stage, they would be considered a god race. However, their original bodies were still humans with mortal bodies. But just now, a single gust of wind had destroyed the demon god's domain. In their eyes, this was a god. The geniuses who hadn't reached the ruler level could only sigh in amazement, but those who had reached the ruler level were truly shocked. They'd never heard of anyone who could destroy a ruler's domain with a wave of a hand. Even god emperors had relied on their understanding of domains to suppress and devour their opponents' domains. What's more, this was a demon god's domain. It was several hundred meters wide. This was far more stable than an ordinary ruler's domain. Even so, it had only been a gust of wind. How was this possible? The Yao King's eyes were grave. He'd lived for so long, but he'd never seen someone who could destroy a domain with a single gust of wind. Could it be that the owner of this black dog had already transcended? No. There was another possibility. This person was from that place. That place had existed since the first era. It had completely transcended the three realms and was no longer governed by the laws. It had hidden itself from the world since the second era and hadn't appeared for hundreds of millions of years. Why did the people from that place suddenly come out? Could it be that they wanted to interfere with the rule of the three realms? The Yao King's eyes grew even more grave when he thought of this. If someone from that place came, even the god, Yao, and demon emperors would have to be careful, let alone demon gods and Yao Kings. He subconsciously glanced at Xianji. In his opinion, given Xianji's divination skills, she should be able to divine. She was smiling at them. As expected, the Yao King's heart immediately sank. From Xianji's smile, he already knew what he wanted to know. It seemed like there was a need to reconsider all the arrangements within the clan. Idiot, are you panicking now? After meeting the Yao King's gaze, a smile appeared on Xianji's lips. In fact, she didn't even try to figure out where these people were from. Even if she really wanted to, with the transcendental position of that place, she wouldn't be able to calculate it using the rules of this world. But even if he used his toes to think, to be able to do this, who else could it be other than that person? Could it be a transcendence born in this era? This was simply impossible. Without a doubt, this peerless expert was from that place. No wonder the God Emperor Zhou Wu still hadn't shown himself. He must have known that someone from that place would come to the God realm. Even he would have to respectfully lower himself if he ran into someone from that place. In order not to damage his dignity in front of the God realm, he might as well not show himself. You're really thinking too much. Xianji snorted softly and looked up into the sky. With someone from that place here, this farce could finally come to an end. After the domain disappeared, the black dog, who was lying on the ground, kicked its legs and stood up. Its face was full of pride, and it faced the demon god provocatively, wagging its tail incessantly. Even more hateful, it brazenly peed in front of the demon god, as if to demonstrate its might. This black dog. Seeing its arrogant demeanor, the heroes of the God realm and Yao realm didn't know what to say. Had it forgotten how its legs had turned to jelly, how it lay trembling on the ground and whimpered? Woof! After peeing, the black dog even barked at the demon god. Its eyes brimmed with disdain, and it rolled its eyes in a very human-like manner, then turned its head and ignored the demon god. That black dog really is outrageous, someone in the crowd couldn't help but mutter. Someone in the crowd couldn't help but mutter. Shui Mo and the other society leaders stared at the sky. Their minds were filled with images of that gale and their shattered domains. I've never underestimated this dog's master. Ever since this black dog was able to instantly kill a devil general, I knew that its master was definitely one of the most powerful people in the world. However, this senior has given me a completely new understanding of him. Jiang Yong's eyes were filled with solemnity. Momo, Bebe, did Big Sister Qianhe tell you that someone from that place is about to appear? Murong Shui glanced at Shui Mo and Shui Bebe shook their heads. At that moment, Yi Zichen suddenly slapped his thigh. I remember now. The sudden exclamation startled the people next to him. Li Hu asked with widened eyes. What the hell? You remember now? Yi Zichen didn't answer. Instead, he stared intently at the insufferably arrogant black dog. The dog had changed far too much. No wonder he hadn't remembered. But he was absolutely certain that this was the dog he was thinking of. If it really was him, then didn't that mean its master was? Could it really be him? Yi Zichen looked up, his eyes brimming with anticipation. In the face of the black dog's provocation, Shaku didn't react in the slightest. On the other hand, a hint of fear could be seen in his eyes. He couldn't help but be afraid. No one knew better than him just how strong his domain was. With a wave of his hand, a gust of wind had shattered his domain. Not even a demon god could do such a thing. To be able to do that, there were only, who are you? Shaku refused to believe that he was the person from that place. It hadn't shown its face for hundreds of millions of years. Just when the era was about to come to an end, it suddenly appeared. That was simply impossible. Besides, that place had transcended long ago. There was no need for them to interfere with the end of this era. Who the hell are you? I am Shaku, one of the 16 demon gods. How dare you provoke me? Aren't you afraid? What's there to be afraid of? What? Do you demons dare challenge me? There was no one to be seen, but his voice seemed to come from every direction. Then do you dare state your name? Roared Shaku. Ha, why wouldn't I dare? That person's disdainful chuckle appeared in the void. Then, he said word by word. Chapter 1322. Outside Special Envoy Yang Jian. The person in the sky announced his name. At that moment, Yi Zichen's eyes lit up with a brilliant light. It really was him. When he'd confirmed that the black dog was the howling celestial dog, he'd wondered if that person really was his good friend, Yang Jian. To think it really was him. To those who'd never lived in the modern realm, this name was unfamiliar. The way they saw it, it might just be this senior's name. But to those who'd lived in the modern realm, especially those Yi Zichen knew, they didn't recognize him. When they heard Yang Jian's name, they glanced at him. He's still alive, and he's gotten so strong. Yi Zichen couldn't even tell if he was smiling or not. Gu Zichen had sent Yang Jian here ever since the beginning of the struggle for the 3 realms in the lower realms and the fight for the position of master of the 3 realms. Since then, he hadn't heard any news of Yang Jian. Based on Yi Zichen's understanding of Yang Jian, he'd been worried that he'd provoked some other major power. But now it seemed he'd been overthinking things. Yang Jian was doing far better than he'd expected. Not only that, but he was terrifyingly strong. I already told you my name. What else do you want to know? Snorted Yang Jian. Yang Jian? Sha Ku had been searching for information on Yang Jian, but he'd never heard of such a person. From the other party's tone, one could really feel his disdain for the demon race. Could it be that he really was from that place? If he really was from that place, then why did he try to kill that person's dog? Wasn't that suicidal? He couldn't believe Yang Jian was from that place. All he could bet on was he wasn't. Do you dare show yourself? Sha Ku gnashed his teeth, his face ashen. You're quite interesting, kid. What do I have to be afraid of? Kid. Sha Ku almost coughed up blood. He'd lived for who knew how many years. Although he wasn't considered old among demons, he was no kid either. But after thinking it over, he could only let it go. If this person really was from that place, he could only endure being called a kid. But why was being a demon god so frustrating? What was wrong with him recently? If you want to see me, I'll let you see me. Everyone else turned to look at the sky as well. Whether it was the geniuses participating in the Battle of Geniuses, the rulers, or even Xian Ji and the Yao King, they all wanted to see this peerless expert. A ripple appeared in the sky like a stone falling into water. Everyone saw that from within the ripple. This guy, when he saw Yang Jian step out of the void, Yi Zichen was speechless. The person who came was indeed Yang Jian, the king of flame war, Yang Jian, whom he met in the heavenly court. But what was his current situation? What was he wearing? Yang Jian appeared in front of everyone with a pair of black sunglasses over his eyes and a cigarette in his mouth. He was dressed in colorful underpants as if he was going on a vacation, and he was wearing wooden slippers on his feet. This was exactly what Yi Zichen was wearing in the modern realm. Even in the modern realm, his attire would be rather eye-catching. Here, it was even more out of place. Howling Celestial Dog shook its head and ran to Yang Jian's side with its 4 paws. Before it could get close, Yang Jian gave it a kick. Are you still going to show off? I worked so hard to help you break through, yet you're still trying to be naughty? The Howling Celestial Dog whimpered, wagged its tail, and scooted over pitifully. Yang Jian glanced at its feet. Come here and lie down. It lowered its head and obediently crawled over. Yang Jian took off his sunglasses, peeking out a slit in his sneaky eyes. Yi Zichen was all too familiar with this gaze. He was flirting with a girl. After a short while, Yang Jian pushed his sunglasses back up and crushed the cigarette in his hand. Kid, your grandpa Yang Jian is here. Do you have any other orders? Yi Zichen didn't feel any pressure from Yang Jian's body. As he stood in the sky, he looked like a mortal. They couldn't sense even the slightest fluctuation of divine power. But since he could fly, that meant he was at least a sky sovereign expert. Yi Zichen hadn't expected him to actually come out. When Yang Jian appeared, Sha Ku paid close attention to his surroundings and waited for the laws to appear. The people of that place had already transcended the laws and couldn't return here. But even after all this time, he still hadn't seen the laws appear. He wasn't from that place. Although Sha Ku didn't know what sort of demonic technique he'd used to shatter his domain with a gust of wind. But since he wasn't from that place, Sha Ku had nothing to fear. Humph, you're quite obedient, aren't you? When I tell you to come out, you come out. Sha Ku snorted. He narrowed his eyes at Yang Jian, who was hovering in the air. Now that you've come out, I wanted to ask you how you're going to deal with this. Deal with what? Yang Jian arched his brows. Your dog killed one of our demon generals. Don't you owe us an explanation? Said Sha Ku. So what? He wanted to touch my bro? Didn't he deserve more than death? Yi Zichen instantly became the focus of everyone's attention. I think the one who died was Yi Zichen. Platoon leader Yi. The people around Yi Zichen were at a loss for words. Yi Zichen's background was shocking. They'd just begun to digest it, and now another terrifyingly strong bro had appeared. Your bro? Sha Ku knit his brows. You don't need to know because you're going to die too. Suddenly, Yang Jian's eyebrows that were exposed outside his sunglasses furrowed. As he frowned, the people around him felt the temperature drop in an instant. The howling celestial dog bared its fangs at the demon god, its expression ferocious. Ha ha, what a joke! Sha Ku suddenly burst into laughter. I admit that I might not be a match for you. But if you kill me, do you dare? If you kill me, you'll have to bear the wrath of the entire demon race. Can you bear the consequences? In response to Sha Ku's threat, Yang Jian smiled playfully. Kid, you seem to be mistaken about something. Sha Ku's gaze shifted. He watched as Yang Jian slowly descended from the sky and landed directly in front of him. The hand he'd been using to put out his cigarette grinned and reached into the air. When he reached his hand back, a cyan tablet appeared in his hand. The character Te was engraved on it. When they saw it, Xian Ji and the Yao King couldn't help but knit their brows. Sha Ku's eyes lost their previous perverse glint. Instead, they were filled with terror. Yang Jian clenched the tablet and slapped Sha Ku's face twice. Chapter 1323. Chapter 1323. The three emperors gather. The azure wooden token was about the size of a palm, and the word envoy was written on it in flamboyant calligraphy. One could faintly sense the aura of a dragon and a tiger from the words, and they exuded a dignified aura. When Yang Jian took out the envoy's token, Sha Ku's heart sank. This special envoy's hand token was definitely not fake. The entire hand token was a cyan blue color, which was the unique color of the green willow wood in the outer realm. It was impossible to grow azure willow trees in the territories of the other god races, Yao races, and demon races. The hand slapped Sha Ku's face loudly, but he stood there like a block of wood. He didn't dare dodge or resist. Now you're well behaved. Where's the arrogance you used to yell at me? He kicked Sha Ku. He staggered a few steps before stabilizing himself. Lord Demon God! Some of the demon elites ran out. A few youths even raised their weapons and charged at Yang Jian, as if they wanted to show off in front of the demon god. However, they didn't even manage to touch the hem of Yang Jian's clothes. A few afterimages flashed past them. These demon elites turned into ice-cold corpses and fell to the ground. After biting them to death, the howling celestial dog glared threateningly at the other demons, its fur standing on end. Vile creature, you dare kill my demon compatriots! Shut up! Sha Ku's shout was like a clap of thunder, suppressing the indignant demons. After that, he pushed aside the demon elites around him. Sha Ku glanced at the demon elites lying on the ground, still bleeding profusely. He turned his head away, gritted his teeth, and braced himself as he walked up to Yang Jian. Please calm your anger, Lord Envoy. This lowly one had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Please don't take out your anger on us demons because of those people. The mighty demon god was now as lowly as an ant. He lowered his head and apologized. Yang Jian smiled indifferently. He grabbed Sha Ku's chin and made him look at him. You don't accept it, do you? Of course Sha Ku wouldn't accept it. He had overcome many obstacles to become a demon god. He wasn't some weakling. If it wasn't for the fact that Yang Jian had the support of the outer realm, and that he had the special envoy's token in his hand, how could he have been convinced? He quickly hid the unwillingness in his eyes and shook his head. I wouldn't dare. Don't dare means yes. A smile appeared on Yang Jian's sullen face. He released his hand formed from divine power and lifted Sha Ku's chin. He looked at the entire demon race. Are you guys also unconvinced? Everyone kept quiet out of fear. In front of Yang Jian, even the devil gods were as weak as ants. How could mere Empyreans, Devas, and sovereigns compare to him? However, their fear did not mean that the entire demon race was a coward. Saintess, please. Before he could say anything, the holy maiden slapped him across the face. The force of the slap was so great that a few of the hero's teeth flew out. His face instantly swelled up like a steamed bun. The holy maiden bowed deeply once more. Esteemed envoy, please forgive us. There's not a single demon who refuses to submit to the outside's jurisdiction. Those who died can only blame themselves for not knowing how to appreciate kindness. Also, I'll deal with the demon who spoke just now. As for Sha Ku, you can do whatever you want with him. Your Excellency, what are your orders? Asked the holy maiden. When he saw her face, Yang Jian froze. If he remembered correctly, she seemed to have a close relationship with Yizichen. He glanced at Yizichen, only to see him shake his head. In truth, Yang Jian didn't quite understand what that shake meant. However, he was sure he'd remembered correctly. Although he didn't know how she'd become a demon, and her cultivation wasn't low at all, he still had to give her some face. It's fine. Go back and stay put. Yang Jian ignored the holy maiden and narrowed his eyes at Sha Ku. Look at the demons you serve. Did you hear that? They've already given up on you. They're afraid you'll provoke me, so they completely ignore you. They don't even dare plead for you. Don't you feel sorry for yourself? Sha Ku said nothing. How about this? Yang Jian laughed calmly. You must be thinking that if your demon emperor were here, he'd definitely plead for you. Why don't I let your devil emperor come out and see what he thinks? The demon emperor? The crowd grew restless. At the same time, Yang Jian patted Sha Ku on the head and shouted into the sky. All of you, come on out. What are you still hiding for? The sky was suddenly filled with 3 colors, azure, gold, and violet. At the center of each color stood a single person. Most likely, the light was coming from each of them. Each of them stood in a different direction, dividing the sky into 3. None of them gave way to the other. The onlookers were dumbfounded. Standing in the center of the golden light was God Emperor Zhou Wu, the azure light was Yao Emperor Tai, and the violet light was Demon Emperor Kuei Lin. Normally, none of the 3 great emperors showed their faces. Who would have thought they'd all show up at the same time? Before long, the light faded, and the 3 of them landed on the ground. Brother Yang. The 3 of them cupped their hands in greeting. The emissary from the outside was worthy of their respect. Yang Jian also nodded to them as a way of returning the courtesy. They were the emperors of the 3 realms, after all. Even if Yang Jian was the emissary, they still had to give him some face. After the greetings, the 3 emperors fell silent. Yang Jian didn't speak, and they simply stood to the side. Just what is the outside doing? Why did the god, Yao, and demon emperors give them the cold shoulder just because they said so? Quite a few people wondered. They didn't know what the outside represented, but the rulers present did. Even if he was a small fry from the outside, they had to treat him with caution. Besides, this was the emissary from the outside. Giving the 3 emperors the cold shoulder wasn't surprising at all. Your demon emperor is here. Yang Jian patted Sha Ku's face, then turned to the demon emperor. I'm sure you know what's going on, so I won't repeat myself. This kid is one of your people, and a demon god at that. He must have quite a high status among the demons. Tell me what you want to do with him. As he spoke, Sha Ku looked at the demon emperor with a desperate desire to live. He didn't want to die, and the demon emperor was his last hope. To his disappointment, however, the demon emperor didn't so much as look him in the eye. When he heard Yang Jian's question, the demon emperor's face rippled with a hearty smile. This blind fool has angered you, Brother Yang. I'll leave it to you to decide how to deal with him." Instantly, Sha Ku's heart froze. He'd fought for the demons his entire life, helping them expand their territory. He'd played no small part in helping Kuei Lin ascend to the Demon Emperor's position. But his heart truly froze. After Kuei Lin's explanation, Sha Ku. Chapter 13:24. Chilling heart, did you hear that? I'll do as I please. Yang Jian smirked. Kuei Lin stood silently to the side, playing the role of a backdrop. He had to do this. Although Sha Ku was a demon god, provoking a transcendent race from the outside for him wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it. He had deliberately planned to attack the god race at this time so that he could lead his race and become the second race to successfully escape the destruction of the end of the era. If they provoked the special envoy now, the outsiders would hold a grudge against them. That wouldn't make up for the losses. Little did he know that God Emperor Zhou Wu and Yao Emperor Tai were thinking the same thing. Now that the end of the era was upon them, they were preparing for it. The outsiders were the only truly transcendent faction. Not only could they not provoke them, but they had to be on good terms with them. Perhaps they'd even receive some advice or help. Sha Ku's heart sank. He wouldn't kneel and beg for mercy. He was a man with a backbone. If he was going to die, then he'd die with a bang. Just kill me. Sha Ku glared at Yang Jian. There was no longer any reason for him to hesitate. He didn't want to blame Kuei Lin for being heartless. At his position, he had to think about the long term. For the future of his race, he had to make this choice. But there was no need to say anything else. All he wanted was death. You want to die? Yang Jian couldn't help but chuckle at the resolute look in Sha Ku's eyes. Then I'll fulfill your wish. Before anyone could see Yang Jian's movements, Sha Ku collapsed to the ground, his eyes closed. Sha Ku's body lay lifeless on the ground. There was no sign of life in his body. He took a white cloth out of thin air and wiped his hand. The cloth fell to the ground, covering Sha Ku's face. Killing him won't appease my anger. I want to take him back. What do you think? Yang Jian looked at Kuei Lin. Of course, said Kuei Lin. With a wave of his hand, Sha Ku's body vanished from sight. The demons clenched their fists. They were also a little disappointed. The demon god, who'd done so much for the demon race, had been killed just like that. He hadn't even dared resist. Not only that, the corpse did not even resist when the other party took it away. This was too disappointing. I'm very grateful to the demon Tharch for cooperating with me. I'm also grateful to the god Tharch and the demon Tharch for being my background for so long. The god, Yao, and demon emperors smiled sheepishly. Yang Jian narrowed his eyes as he spoke to everyone present. You might think that I'm too domineering, killing whoever I want. However, all of this is based on the fact that you are the weaker party. When you go to kill others, have you ever thought about those who were killed? When you wanted to attack my brother, did you ever think of stopping? These people who died deserve to die. Of course, you can hate me. I won't stop you. However, if I find out who dares to touch a single hair on my brother's head, it won't be as simple as killing the person involved. You all understand. At this point, Yang Jian deliberately glanced at the three emperors. When he saw Yi Zichen's mocking smile, he pursed his lips and snorted, then walked in front of Yi Zichen. Let's go. He grabbed Yi Zichen by the shoulder, then disappeared with the howling celestial dog. The entire square was eerily quiet, and the demon emperor's face was so dark that it looked like it was about to drip water. Brother Donghuang, Brother Kuei Lin, do you think the battle of geniuses should continue? Asked God Emperor Zhou Wu. Of course. No matter how the situation changed, the battle of geniuses was the most honorable way for the devil race to enter and leave the divine world. For the sake of that plan, he had planned it for far too long. How could he give up just because of this little setback? With that, Kuei Lin let out a furious snort. With a wave of his sleeve, he shattered space and left. The demon Tharch cupped his hands at the god Tharch and flew away. Out of the 3 great emperors, only the god emperor remained and looked at the mess on the ground. Xianji, your subordinate is here. Xianji took a few steps forward and heard the god emperor speak. I'll leave this place to you. The lot drawing ceremony will be held tomorrow, and I'll leave it to you as well. Forget it, I'll leave the divine mountains to you for now. I'm a bit tired, so don't come looking for me if there's nothing particularly important. Your subordinate obeys. Rubbing his temples, God Emperor Zhou Wu vanished from the void. Xianji remained at the front. She looked at the gods, Yao, and demons. The lot drawing ceremony will be held at noon tomorrow. If you want to withdraw, feel free to do so. In any case, if you still want to participate in the Battle of Geniuses, gather here at noon tomorrow. Yang Jian led Yi Zichen to a thatched hut. The hut faced a clear stream, and its bottom could be seen. The hut faced a mountain range that stretched for thousands of kilometers without end. Birds sang and the fragrance of flowers filled the air. It was a delightful scene. The hut was surrounded by fences, forming a small courtyard. There were quite a few herbs growing inside, and a pot of steaming tea sat on a stone table in the center of the courtyard. Is this where you live? This was obviously a hermit's residence. Given his understanding of Yang Jian, there was no way he'd have guessed this was where he lived. This? Of course not. We haven't seen each other in a long time, and I don't have a place to live in the God realm. It just so happened that I took a liking to this place, so I discussed it with the owner and decided to borrow it. What do you think? This place isn't bad, right? Borrow. Yi Zichen could already guess how Yang Jian had borrowed it. If he'd said borrow as politely as anyone else, that wouldn't have been him. No wonder he'd said he had some business to take care of, but it turned out he'd come to steal the house. Not bad. Yi Zichen nodded. Haha, as expected, there's nothing wrong with my eyes. Yang Jian laughed heartily, then inexplicably sighed with emotion. He patted Yi Zichen on the shoulder. It's been a long time since we last met. It's been a long time. Yi Zichen couldn't help but nod. It's been over 100 years since you ascended. And here I thought you'd be miserable, given your personality. I never would have guessed the God Emperor and the others were so afraid of you. Sigh, don't mention it. When I first arrived, I really was miserable. But then, Yang Jian shook his head, sighed, and couldn't help but reminisce. I miss the days when I was in the heavenly court. When I had time, I could still chat with those guys in the chat group. I wonder how they're doing. Do you still have your phone? Asked Yi Zichen. Of course. Yang Jian snatched his phone out of thin air. This is something I've always wanted. I've always kept it. Chapter 13:25. Yang Jian returns to the group. When Yang Jian first arrived on the Divine Mountains, he tried contacting Yi Zichen and the others through his phone, but now that he was on the Divine Mountains, he couldn't send any messages to the group. From then on, he gave up on using his phone and sealed it away for all eternity. Over the years, whenever he missed his old friends, he'd take his phone out of thin air and look at it. Memories of his past flooded his mind. However, he'd never tried using divine power to charge it. He knew full well that without the internet, there was no way to send messages. But now, Yi Zichen told him to turn it on. He arched his brows, but didn't ask any further questions. Charging his phone was a simple matter. He silently infused it with divine power, and the phone's screen lit up. It's been almost 100 years since I last used it. As he turned it on, Yang Jian smiled at Yi Zichen. I'm just afraid that if I turn it on, I'll miss my old friends. Yi Zichen simply smiled in response. Yang Jian stared at his phone screen. Until, buzz. His phone began to vibrate like crazy. Messages from the red packet server kept popping up on the screen. He froze. He saw disbelief in his eyes. Yi Zichen chuckled and gestured for him to open the messages. Let's talk to our old friends. Within the red packet server, chatting was the group's daily task, especially after the divine mountains connected to the internet. Practically every day, the immortals in the group had to listen to people on the divine mountains talk about their experiences there. God of Fortune, great sage, when can you bring us up there to play for a few days? Monkey King, once I've established my footing here, I'll bring you all up. Yulao, Monkey King, when will you come over and have a few drinks? Old Lord Taishang says he misses you. Old Lord Taishang, when did I say that? Monkey King, that old geezer misses me. He wants to refine me, doesn't he? God of Thunder, how many years has it been? Great Sage, you're too vengeful. Old Lord Taishang, petty. Monkey King, hey you old geezer, it seems you want me to beat you up a few more times. Old Lord Taishang, you scared me to death. The group members joked around, but then, Xiao Tianquan, woof, woof, woof. The group fell silent. Whether it was the immortals in the heavenly court or the ones on the divine mountain, they all gripped their phones tightly as they stared at the howling celestial hound's words. This was especially true of the great sage of the northern divine mountain. He was currently drinking with Wei Jie and the others in a tavern within the divine mountain. When he saw the message from the celestial hound, he was stunned. His eyes were filled with a complicated expression as he stared at the message on his phone. Great Sage, Wei Jie asked suspiciously as he raised his cup of wine. The great sage raised his hand, indicating that they didn't need to worry about him. Then, he put his hand down and typed out a line of words with a trembling hand. Why aren't they talking? Yang Jian, who had used Howling Celestial Dog's account to send a message, couldn't help but frown when he saw that no messages appeared on the screen for a long time. At that moment, Yi Zichen was also lurking in the group. He was already used to the group's sudden silence. Maybe they're a little surprised. The celestial howling dog is bound to you. If it comes out to speak, it must mean that you're going to come out too. They haven't seen each other for 100 years, so of course they're confused. Before he even finished speaking, the great sage's message appeared on the screen. Monkey King, my son? As soon as he sent the message, the great sage stared intently at his phone screen. His fiery eyes were filled with undisguisable anticipation. Until, Erlang Shin, Monkey King, are you looking to die? I'm your father and you're my son. When Yang Jian saw the great sage's message, his face instantly turned green. He clenched his phone and sent the message as fast as he could. It really is him. The great sage, who was sitting at the table, suddenly laughed. His eyes glistened with tears. He looked at the message with a smile and sent it out without any hesitation. Monkey King, Erlang Shin, my son? You've disappeared for almost 100 years, yet you didn't even tell your grand-grandson that you're safe? You're really too naughty. Erlang Shin, screw off. Monkey King, hey you little brat, how can you speak to your elders like that? I haven't hit you in 100 years, so your skin's itching again? Erlang Shin, hurry up and hit me, alright? I'm scared to death. Monkey King, coordinates. Yulao, old Yang really came back? Ping Marshal, old Yang, you're still alive? God of Fortune, my God, I feel like all of our old brothers are back. God of Thunder, Yang Jian, Erlang Shin, of course Laozi is alive. What? Do you guys want Laozi to die outside? I'm telling you, even if Laozi dies, I'll definitely drag all of you down with me. That's what Yang Jian sent, but Yi Zichen, who sat beside him, could see the smile on his face. He's definitely very happy, right? Everything was the same as before. He fought with the great sage the moment he saw him, and the people who often spoke up in the group were still there. Bro, what's going on? Yang Jian looked at Yi Zichen with a silly smile. I couldn't send a message at all when I came. I brought the people who set up the network between the heavenly court and the underworld over. It was only recently set up, said Yi Zichen. Monkey King, Erlang Shin, my son, send me the coordinates. The great sage didn't relent and tagged Yang Jian, saying he wanted to teach him how to respect his elders. Yang Jian curled his lips and ignored him. He chuckled and chatted with the others in the group. The great sage, who'd been left out in the cold, was infuriated. Messages from Yang Jian flooded the screen. Erling Shin, stop blabbering. If you keep blabbering, you'll cry. Monkey King? In response to the great sage's questioning, Yang Jian sent a simple message. Yang Jian, supreme treasure? After sending that message, Yang Jian left the group, tossed his phone to the side, and laughed maniacally. Meanwhile, his phone buzzed and vibrated. Yi Zichen tilted his head and saw that the great sage had sent him a private message. I'm dying of laughter. Even this damned monkey has his day. I can't take it anymore. I have to celebrate. Yang Jian clutched his stomach and laughed maniacally. He ignored the great sage's message in the slightest. He wiped the tears from his eyes, then reached into the void and pulled out 2 bottles of iced cola, then tossed one to Yi Zichen. As for himself, he opened a bottle and gulped it down. While drinking, he choked on his laughter because he laughed too hard. It was as if extreme joy turned to sorrow. After a while, Yang Jian finally stopped coughing. He panted as he placed the cola on the table. Yi Zichen looked him up and down for a long time, then looked at the cola in his hands. This. Chapter 1326. The terror of contemplation. Yang Jian was still coughing dryly. The howling celestial dog wagged its tail and scooted up to him, its eyes filled with deep concern. Yi Zichen put down his can of cola, walked up to him, and patted his back a few times. Are you all right? I'm fine. Yang Jian shook his head hoarsely. I just wanted to laugh when I thought about how worried the monkey was. Then I choked on my cola. He coughed a few more times. Perhaps feeling a bit better, Yang Jian took a few sips of his half-empty can of cola. Why aren't you drinking? Yang Jian couldn't help but ask when he saw the can of cola still sitting on the table. I don't really feel like drinking. Although the modern realm Yi Zichen lived in was frozen, the heavenly court could already mass-produce modern realm items. So long as he wanted something through the red packet group, they'd naturally send it to him. However, he was rather curious as to why Yang Jian would have it. He'd only just found out about the network setup. He hadn't seen anyone send him a can of cola. Yi Zichen wanted to ask, but the great sage's news made him even more curious. What did you just say about the supreme treasure? Why did it make the great sage so excited? You don't know, do you? Yang Jian's expression was colorful. He sat back in his chair with a wide smile and laughed. This is a story from before he went to Grandmaster Xuanzang to seek scriptures. Let me tell you, it's pretty explosive. Yang Jian's expression seemed to say, do you want to know? If you do, I'll tell you. Yi Zichen narrowed his eyes. He knew about the supreme treasure. In the story Journey to the West, the great sage was called the supreme treasure before he went to seek scriptures. Back then, he'd had a love-hate relationship with Fairy Zixia. Yi Zichen glanced at Yang Jian's gossipy face and froze despite himself. You didn't run into Zixia, did you? Yang Jian's smile instantly froze, and his eyes filled with disbelief. How did you know? You know about the monkey's supreme treasure too. No way, I'm right? Exclaimed Yi Zichen. You're right, but I didn't run into Zixia. I just learned a bit about her. The monkey clearly knows too. Otherwise, why else would he be so excited? Yang Jian nodded. Zixia really existed. Yi Zichen blinked. He didn't know how to describe his current feelings. To be honest, he was an absolute atheist before he entered the Red Packet Group. In his opinion, those immortals were just made-up stories, until he actually saw immortals. He believed it. But in his opinion, Journey to the West was absolutely fabricated, and the Zixia in it was definitely a fictional character, but now he had no choice but to believe it again. Inexplicably, he couldn't help but panic. Why did all these seemingly fabricated myths and legends actually exist? Moreover, there were no discrepancies in the story. Be it the people or the events, they were all absolutely true. The only possibility was that someone knew all of this and passed it on to someone else. If that's the case, then it's a little scary. Yi Zichen rubbed his lips, his eyes filled with shock. If he didn't think about it, he wouldn't have realized it. But if he thought about it carefully, it was truly terrifying. These seemed to be myths, but they were actually real. Moreover, someone had purposely let everyone know of these stories. I can't think about it. If he continued to think about it, Yi Zichen was worried that he would lose sleep at night. The phone on the table stopped vibrating. Yi Zichen couldn't help but point at it. Are you sure you want to ignore the great sage like this? You know how bad his temper is. You think I'm afraid of him? I'm the outside's special envoy. That monkey has beaten me up so many times in the past. I'm going to ignore him for a while and let him reflect on his mistakes, snorted Yang Jian. All right then. The two of them were old rivals, so Yi Zichen didn't want to get involved. At that moment, Yang Jian's special envoy medallion lit up. When he saw the flickering medallion, Yang Jian couldn't help but frown. You didn't even give me time to chat. He resentfully tossed the medallion into the air, then stood up. Bro, let's go. Yi Zichen didn't reply. Instead, he shot him a puzzled look. The outsiders want to see you. I'm actually here because they told me to pick you up and discuss something with you, said Yang Jian. They're looking for me? Yi Zichen was stunned. He'd never seen anyone from the outside before. Why would they want to see him for no apparent reason? He'd heard that the outside was the only faction that truly transcended the laws. From the way the god, Yao, and demon emperors treated Yang Jian, it was obvious. Even the mighty hegemons of an entire realm treated the outside's special envoy like brother. From this, it was clear how transcendent the outside's status was. Why would such a faction want to see someone like him, who hadn't even reached the diviner level? Don't look at me. I don't know why they want to see you either, said Yang Jian. Can I not go? Asked Yi Zichen. What do you think? Asked Yang Jian. When he heard that, Yi Zichen gave up resisting. Even the god emperor feared the outside. If they wanted to see him, how could he not go? But I'm sure they won't harm you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come to pick you up, said Yang Jian, sensing Yi Zichen's concern. Yi Zichen didn't trust the outside, but he absolutely trusted Yang Jian. Since he'd said that, Yi Zichen had no reason to hesitate. He nodded. Then let's go. The void of primal chaos. Yang Jian grabbed Yi Zichen by the shoulder, and they floated through the void. As far as the eye could see, they were surrounded by black holes that swallowed up heaven and earth. Before long, Yi Zichen saw at least a few hundred black holes appear in the primal chaos. He even saw a relatively large black hole swallow up a relatively small one. With Yang Jian protecting him, Yi Zichen didn't sense any of the devouring power. We're here. Yi Zichen looked around at the primal chaos and couldn't help but ask. Yang Jian shook his head, a rare solemn expression in his eyes. He patted Yi Zichen on the shoulder and said solemnly, We're about to reach the outside. We'll be arriving at the outer realms soon. I stopped here to remind you, said Yi Zichen. What is it? Yang Jian looked at Yi Zichen, but he hesitated. His eyes betrayed his hesitation. After a while, he sighed softly and said, When we reach the outside, everything you see might leave you bewildered and shocked. You might even feel like your worldview is about to crumble. However, I hope you'll be able to keep your composure. The first time I went there, I was confused as well. I'm here to give you a mental boost so you can mentally prepare yourself. What do you mean? Yi Zichen didn't understand. Chapter 13:27. The outside? The modern realm? Yang Jian's reminder filled Yi Zichen with undisguisable curiosity about the outside, a place that struck terror in the hearts of everyone. Just what kind of world was the outside? It actually made him feel like his worldview was collapsing. Moreover, from Yang Jian's gaze, he could really feel the seriousness in that gaze. There was also a faint hint of worry. Yi Zichen didn't ask what Yang Jian was trying to say. He knew that it was just as Yang Jian said. Once he reached the outside, the truth would naturally come to light. Yang Jian used his divine power to carry Yi Zichen to a black hole much larger than the others. It seemed that if they passed through it, they'd reach the so-called outside. Even then, Yang Jian patted Yi Zichen's shoulder heavily. You have to be mentally prepared. With that, they passed through. Yi Zichen was curious as to why Yang Jian's expression was so serious. However, even as they passed through the black hole, Yi Zichen, who hadn't even opened his eyes, heard a familiar car horn. When he opened his eyes, he was shocked. His eyes widened, and his arms trembled violently. In front of him was a series of skyscrapers. There was also a familiar LED screen in the commercial building, which was playing the trailer of a certain movie. Countless people shuttled through the street. Perhaps it was because Yang Jian's clothes were too strange. Quite a few people glanced at them in astonishment. This was the outside? He was clearly in the city of ice he'd lived in for 20 years, and beneath his feet was the city's most bustling pedestrian street. Even the street signs were identical. There was no way he was wrong. This was the modern realm. He was back? Yi Zichen couldn't hide his astonishment. As he looked around at his familiar surroundings, he felt as if he'd suddenly returned home after living in a foreign land for a long time. He was clearly a Sky Supreme, but his eyes were so red that he wanted to cry. His lips quivered, but he didn't say a word. He just closed his eyes and listened to the horn that had annoyed him for decades. Hey! Someone patted him on the shoulder. When Yi Zichen opened his eyes, he saw a beautiful girl in a midriff-bearing top and minuscule shorts. She smiled and looked at him curiously. Jingwan. Wasn't this the streamer who'd invited him to join her team? Are you cosplaying? Yi Zichen was stunned yet again by this new and familiar phrase. Then he remembered that he was still wearing the same clothes he'd worn on the Divine Mountains. In the modern realm, he'd be considered an ancient costume. Although Yang Jian's Hawaiian plaid shirt and pants were a little exaggerated, it was not as eye-catching as him. Fortunately, the modern world was an all-inclusive era, and his strange clothing could also be treated as cosplay. However, from the looks of it, she didn't seem to recognize him. Why are your eyes so red? Did someone give you the cold shoulder after cosplaying? Be strong, I quite like your outfit, and it's also very suitable for you. Jingwan said with a smile. Thanks, Yi Zichen nodded. Can I have your contact information? Jingwan took out a phone covered in cartoon stickers from her bag, and shook it a few times. Yi Zichen subconsciously frowned, causing the girl to laugh when she saw that. It's fine if it's inconvenient, but I'm actually not such a casual girl. I just don't know why. I have an indescribable feeling towards you. Here's my contact information. If it's possible, I hope you can add me. You're really cool. Jingwan shoved a slip of paper into Yi Zichen's pocket, then waved and left. Yi Zichen took out the slip of paper. To his surprise, it was Jingwan's social media number and phone number. Yi Zichen fished out her phone. He'd had her number back then, so he compared it. There was no mistaking it. This was the modern realm. Yi Zichen put the slip of paper back into his pocket, then looked at Yang Jian with a complicated gaze. Although he didn't say anything, his expression alone made it clear what he wanted to say. What the hell was going on? Why was the outside the modern realm he lived in? Why was that? Hadn't the modern realm been frozen during the demon invasion? Why hadn't it been frozen? Had it been unfrozen along the way? If so, what was he? What were those who'd been sucked into the modern realm like him? It's not what you think. Yang Jian sighed. What do you mean it's not? Isn't this the modern realm? This is where I live. At that moment, Yi Zichen's divine sense suddenly detected Jingwan, the woman who'd given him the slip of paper. She was in the middle of a car accident. It didn't matter whether or not she still remembered him. Even if they'd only met by chance, there was no way Yi Zichen would allow such a tragedy to happen. However, before he could do anything, he saw Jingwan perform a beautiful backflip. She'd leaped several meters into the air, then landed steadily. After landing, Jingwan picked up her bag and left as if nothing had happened. The driver didn't stop at all. He continued driving his car. What's this? Could it be that she was actually a martial artist? No. If she were an ordinary martial artist, her body might be a bit stronger than the average person's, but leaping several meters into the air was simply too shocking. Before he could digest all of this, Yi Zichen saw several people fly through the air. Flying. Yi Zichen rubbed his eyes hard, then looked again. There really were a few men and women flying through the air above him, and quite a few of them. After spreading out his divine sense, Yi Zichen discovered that within 100 miles, there were at least several thousand people who could fly through the air. He was dumbfounded. He turned to look at Yang Jian, hoping to get a reasonable explanation. When Yang Jian saw his gaze, he sighed. I told you before we came so you could prepare yourself. That's what you wanted me to prepare myself for? Why did the world I used to live in become like this? Why could those people fly? Could it be that they were all cultivators? What exactly happened to this world while I was gone? Tell me, what's going on? Yi Zichen was rather agitated. You might not believe me, but this isn't the world you used to live in, said Yang Jian. That's impossible, said Yi Zichen with decisiveness that could sever nails and chop iron. I know that girl who gave me that note. She's Pu Jingwan, a famous streamer. She even invited me to join her battle team. I have her contact information. The contact information she gave me just now was the one she gave me before. Then can you explain why there are so many cultivators here? Yi Zichen was rendered speechless. Yang Jian patted him on the shoulder. How could he not know what Yi Zichen was thinking? When he'd first arrived, he'd thought the same thing. Chapter 13:28. The outside made Yi Zichen collapse. He sat on a park bench. Yi Zichen didn't know how long he'd been sitting there. He didn't talk to Yang Jian. He just sat there in a daze. He looked around at the familiar surroundings, at the endless stream of pedestrians and cars. Want a cigarette? Yang Jian held a cigarette between his lips. He offered it to Yi Zichen. Yi Zichen rubbed his tired head and accepted Yang Jian's cigarette. Then, he lit it with a ball of flame. He'd done it on purpose. He wanted to see how others would react when they saw that he could spit fire. But to his disappointment, the pedestrians didn't show any surprise at all when they saw it. Only now did Yi Zichen feel somewhat resigned. This wasn't the modern realm. Even if it wasn't the modern realm he knew. Yi Zichen heaved a heavy sigh and sighed. So this is the outside? Yang Jian nodded. In truth, when I first got here, I was shocked too. I thought to myself, isn't this where my bro lives? Especially when we were on the pedestrian walkway just now. Back then, we squatted down every day to look at those beautiful legs. But can you believe it? Any random person here is at least a supreme-level expert. Is that the old man practicing Tai Chi 1-2? Yi Zichen arched his brows. No. I knew it. Any random person is. That's a ruler. Yi Zichen was instantly dumbfounded. The old man, who was practicing Tai Chi, seemed to notice their gazes, and even smiled towards them kindly. Bro, this is the outside. Do you know why the people of the upper realms are so afraid of the outside? It's because the people here are born supremes. They aren't restricted by the laws at all. They transcend everything, explained Yang Jian, worried that Yi Zichen didn't understand this clearly enough. No, I still don't quite believe it. Can you give me a few days to confirm it? Asked Yi Zichen. Yang Jian was somewhat hesitant. His superiors wanted him to go see Yi Zichen as soon as possible. However, when he considered his bro's current state of mind, he hesitated for a moment, then nodded. All right, I'll ask my superiors. Half a month passed. During this time, Yi Zichen did simple things. He just wanted to confirm whether this place was exactly the same as the modern realm. In the end, he came to a conclusion that broke him. They were exactly the same. This was where he used to study in the university, and the snack street behind the school that he used to go to the most was also here. Even the owners of the shops had not changed. His university roommates were there too. The only difference was, he did not exist in this world. It wasn't just him. Su Yen, Xia Kiki, Sun Yaij, and everyone else who'd lived in Yi Zichen's previous world, who'd ascended while sealed in ice, no longer existed. As for those who were not expelled from the modern world, they all existed in this world. This place was like a big mirror to the modern world. Everything was almost the same. It was like a completely parallel world. Truly, truly unbelievable. Yi Zichen couldn't help but shake his head with a wry smile. He simply couldn't believe that a world so similar to the modern realm would appear here. Logically speaking, if one thought about it carefully, this was a little terrifying. Why was the outside so similar to Yi Zichen's own world? Could it be that his world had been replicated? Now you can confirm it, right? Yang Jian couldn't help but speak up. He'd asked his superiors to come a bit later, but they hadn't directly agreed, nor had they urged him to. All they asked was that he stay by Yi Zichen's side and protect him. He didn't want to believe this was real. But at this point, he had no choice but to believe it. I'm sure. This is the outside, all right? That's right, I'm puzzled. Don't you know that when I came here, I had to think about how terrifying the outer realms were? Isn't it pretty good now? There are so many handsome men and beautiful women here, and they're all so gentle. Why are the people outside so afraid of the outside? Because you're currently in the outside safety zone. Those who enter from the outside are in the quarantine zone. Safety zone? The quarantine zone? Yi Zichen was rather confused by Yang Jian's explanation. I don't know how to explain it to you. How about we go see my superiors? Said Yang Jian. Alright. Yi Zichen nodded. He'd assumed that a transcendental organization like Yang Jian's would be located in the depths of the mountains, or somewhere completely isolated from the rest of the world. What left Yi Zichen speechless was that Yang Jian actually led him to the agency. There was also a group of armed police officers standing in a row outside. Yi Zichen snuck a glance at them, then looked away. He'd always remembered that everyone here was born a supreme. If he were to compare it to the place where he used to live, the most ordinary person would be a supreme being. For these people to be able to set up an organization to do things, they were at least Deva realm or ruler realm experts. In his previous world, being a sky supreme wasn't bad, but here, he was nothing. The stone walkway was completely empty. As he walked, Yi Zichen deliberately stomped on the stone a few times, but even with his sky supreme strength, he couldn't break it. When they reached the end of the walkway, Yang Jian pushed open a door. Boss, Yi Zichen's here. The room wasn't small. There was an office desk opposite the window with 2 bookshelves on either side. There was a swivel chair across from the desk, and a sofa diagonally across from it. Based on the layout, it was clearly an office. The man Yang Jian called boss had his back to them and was smoking. When he heard that Yi Zichen had arrived, he turned around and put out his cigarette in the ashtray. You're here. Sit. Yi Zichen pointed at a chair, hesitated for a moment, then sat down. Hello. Logically speaking, Yi Zichen found it hard to treat this place as the outside, a place beyond the laws. The boss before him, for example, was dressed in a suit and leather shoes. He looked like a government official. When Yi Zichen looked at him, he felt like he was talking to a leader of the modern realm. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Han Nan, the mayor of Bingqing. Hello, Mayor Han. I've wanted to meet you for a long time, but I never had the chance. Fortunately, I ran into Yang Jian. That's how I got to know you. Judging by your looks, you're quite the talent, a dragon among men. What the hell was this? Was this just polite talk? What the hell? This was the outside. Could he not act like he was in the modern realm? Why did he have to say such things? Furthermore, it looked like he had a favor to ask of Yi Zichen. Why did you bring me here?" asked Yi Zichen. "I called you here because I have something to ask of you," said Han Nan. "You really know how to joke. This is the outside. You're asking me for a favor? How can I help you?" "Little friend, you're one of heaven's 2 chosen emperors, right?" Chapter 13:29. The Outside's Quest. The heavens chose 2 emperors. When Han Nan blurted out the 2 emperors' identities, Yi Zichen's eyes lit up. He rested his fingers on the table and crossed his legs uneasily. "Mayor Han, I don't know what you're talking about. The heavens chose 2 emperors. What do you mean?" Yi Zichen played dumb. That was all Yi Zichen could do. The heavens chose 2 emperors, his deepest secret. He couldn't possibly reveal everything just because Han Nan said it. "Little friend Yi, don't you know? The heavens chose 2 emperors, the people who caused the North Star to appear. Normally, the Emperor Star will appear once in every era, but your era is a bit strange. You actually chose 3 masters," Han Nan said with a smile on his face. "Previously, the 2 people chosen by the Emperor Star were your era's 5 elements great emperor. However, his luck wasn't too good, or perhaps he was too arrogant. Zhou Wu usurped his star's fate and became the current God Emperor. Otherwise, the current God Emperor would be him. Unfortunately, the heavens didn't choose him. Even if he usurped the 5 elements great emperor's fate, it would be difficult for him to become the Lord of the Stars and take that final step. The Emperor's Star appeared once more, but this time, it chose one of the 2. Yi Zichen sat across from Han Nan. His hands were already trembling. He knew far too much. He even knew about Zhou Wu usurping the 5 elements great emperor's fate. "What are you trying to say?" Yi Zichen's breathing quickened. He stared intently at Han Nan, who was still smiling like a spring breeze. "Little friend Yi, you're one of the 2 emperors chosen by the heavens this time." A sharp light flashed through Han Nan's eyes. Although it was only for a brief moment, Yi Zichen still caught it. Creak. Yi Zichen's feet suddenly pushed against the ground, and the chair he was sitting on was pushed back by half a meter. The wheels of the chair left a long black mark on the floor, which was especially conspicuous on the stone floor of the room. He, who was sitting on the chair, immediately stood up. His eyes were filled with seriousness, and all the muscles on his body were completely tense. When he saw his intense reaction, Han Nan couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "Little friend Yi, please relax. We have no ill intentions towards you. All right, since you don't have any hostility, please send me back." At the same time, he glanced at Yang Jian. "Send me back." Yi Zichen couldn't be sure whether or not the outsiders held any enmity towards him. However, he knew that they really did know he had celestial fate. From Yi Zichen's point of view, staying here was far too dangerous. What was even more embarrassing was that he did not even have the most basic ability to protect himself. "Yang Jian, send me back!" Yi Zichen practically roared. His chest heaved violently. Yang Jian, who was in the room, didn't know why there was such a big reaction just now. He subconsciously glanced at Han Nan and Yi Zichen. Yi Zichen saw that Han Nan hadn't moved. "Then I'll go by myself." Just as he was about to move, the gorgeous office suddenly turned into a prison cell surrounded by fences. Yi Zichen was pressed back onto the chair, while his hands and feet were shackled with chains. Han Nan stared at him expressionlessly, like a judge. Meanwhile, Yang Jian, who'd been in the room this entire time, had disappeared. "Little friend, please calm down," said Han Nan. Yi Zichen tried to break free, but he was too weak to budge the chains in the slightest. "Mayor Han, what's the meaning of this? Earlier, you said you needed my help. Is this how you ask for help?" Yi Zichen looked at the chains in his hands. "Little friend Yi, do you think we need to kneel and beg you? Don't forget, this is the outside." "I just want you to calm down a little," said Han Nan. "If you've calmed down, you can tell me and I'll let you go." The situation was clear. Han Nan was using the most direct method to tell Yi Zichen that this was the outside. Even if they were the ones asking for help, they were still the outside. They were the only faction that had transcended the laws, so he'd best behave himself. As expected, Yi Zichen was unyielding. Yi Zichen wasn't someone who didn't know how to adapt to circumstances. He repeatedly reminded himself that this was the outside. Even if he refused to submit, he was still a Sky Supreme. He wouldn't even be enough to fill the gaps between Han Nan's teeth. After a long silence, Yi Zichen said, "Let me go. Little friend Yi, have you calmed down? Let me go." When he saw Yi Zichen's gaze, Han Nan clapped his hands. The gloomy cell transformed back into an office, and Yi Zichen sat back down in his chair. "Little friend Yi, let me apologize. I had no choice but to do what I did just now. Please don't take offense," said Han Nan with an apologetic smile. As for how fake that smile was, Yi Zichen had no interest in commenting on it. He leaned back in his chair, arched his brows and sighed. Then, he licked his teeth. "Tell me, why exactly did you bring me here? What do you want me to help you with? However, I have to make it clear that I won't do anything too dangerous. I value my life a lot, but sometimes I don't. If you force me to do something I don't want to do, you can kill me right here and now." He had to make things clear. Yi Zichen knew full well that his strength was insignificant in the outside, and he was nothing more than an ant in front of Han Nan. But even an ant had its dignity. Besides, Yi Zichen had never seen himself look down on an ant before. He could help, but if they went too far, for example, if they wanted his celestial fate, would Yi Zichen just happily offer it to them? If he lived such a cowardly life, he might as well die. Through Yi Zichen's gaze, Han Nan could sense that he was unafraid of death. "Little friend Yi, you're being too serious." Han Nan gently rapped his knuckles on the table to ease the tense atmosphere. "Of course we wouldn't ask you to do anything too dangerous, nor would we do anything to harm you. In truth, asking you for help is as easy as lifting a finger." "As easy as lifting a finger?" Yi Zichen furrowed his brows. If it really was as easy as lifting a finger, he could have just said it. Was there really a need to beat around the bush? Was there even a need to threaten him? "Of course, for you, it's as easy as lifting a finger." Han Qing repeated himself to confirm Yi Zichen's suspicions. Yi Zichen couldn't help but wonder what exactly Han Qing wanted from him. "Then tell me. If it really is as easy as lifting a finger, I naturally won't refuse." Chapter 1330. The Terminator. Did he drink fake wine? Yi Zichen looked at Han Nan's sincere expression, and his eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. A single era lasted 129,600,000 years. That represented the beginning and end of this era. When this era ended, everything would be destroyed. It would be like the end of the world. No one would be able to escape destruction. After that, the world would be rebuilt and a new cycle would begin. Emperor Hades had told him all of this, and he knew that the world they lived in was about to come to an end. As a result, the Yao race, demon race, and god race that had been silent for too long began to make some movements. It was all for the sake of being able to be like the outer realms now, transcending the rules and becoming an independent world before the end of this era. The gods, Yao, and demons wanted to learn from the outside. What the heck? Han Nan had actually asked him to help the outer realms. "Mayor Han, are you joking with me?" asked Yi Zichen. "No, I know exactly what I'm talking about," said Han Nan solemnly. "Before that, I'd like to ask you to take a look at this." The space in front of him distorted. When the space around him reformed, Yi Zichen found himself in a desolate wasteland. As far as the eye could see, the sky was a deathly gray. The first thing he saw was a vast expanse of withered yellow. The dry earth was riddled with deep ravines. Fierce winds howled and yellow sand filled the air. At this moment, the entire ground began to tremble violently. Before long, a giant beast that looked like a Tyrannosaurus Rex appeared in the distance. It was over 10,000 feet tall, and behind it was a horde of enormous beasts. Following their gaze, Yi Zichen could see that they were headed toward the barrier of light. Roar! The Tyrannosaurus Rex roared, and the scene changed once more. It was still the same desolate wildland, but this time, the ground was littered with the corpses of humans and beasts. The living clutched the dead and wept bitterly. The injured were rushed to be treated. However, Yi Zichen noticed that a few tiny cracks had appeared in the barrier of light that enveloped the continent. The scene in front of him returned to the interior of his office. For some reason, even though he hadn't personally experienced this calamity, his chest still heaved violently. Even now, he could not forget the disdainful gaze of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. That earth-shattering roar still made him a little absent-minded. "Little friend Yi, did you see that?" Han Nan said bitterly. By now, he was no longer as calm and composed as before. Yi Zichen looked at his bitter expression and nodded. "Where did those wild beasts come from? They're way too big." "These are ancient giant beasts," Han Nan said. "They also have another name. I believe this name will be more intuitive to you, little friend Yi. Terminators." Yi Zichen already knew their identities without any further explanation. The end of an era should be carried out by them. The image of the Tyrannosaurus King's towering body involuntarily appeared in his mind. It was tens of thousands of meters tall, and both humans and demons were as tiny as ants in front of it. Its howl seemed as if it could shatter heaven and earth itself. Yi Zichen's heart was filled with faint terror. How could he possibly defeat a Terminator like that? The gods, Yao, and demons most likely had no idea what they were about to face. If they did, who knew how they'd feel? However, the outside had already transcended the laws. Yi Zichen suppressed his anxiety and thought back to Han Nan's request. That barrier of light. Yes, it's exactly as you think. That barrier of light surrounds this place, said Han Nan as he pointed at his feet. But didn't you already transcend? Why are those primordial beasts still attacking you? That shouldn't be the case, right? When you transcended, you must have escaped from those beasts as well. Why are you looking for me now? Asked Yi Zichen. Han Nan smiled bitterly, then shook his head when he saw Yi Zichen's confused expression. In truth, you've always had a strange feeling about us. We did survive from the previous era, but that doesn't mean our world won't be destroyed. In truth, ever since that era, we've always faced attacks from those primordial beasts. It's just that when the Star Emperor was around, the defenses he established allowed us to completely ignore their attack. But a few hundred years ago, somewhere remote and uninhabited, within a cave in a mountain range, countless ripples of light surrounded the cave, and roughly 20 people sat inside. There were men and women, as well as Yao, demons, and even gods. I called you all here. In truth, you should already know what I'm going to say, right? The speaker was a cloaked demon expert. When they looked closely, they saw that he was the demon emperor, Kuei Lin. The others in the cave were all famous figures of the god, Yao, and demon realms. They were either the heads of peak-level clans or the leaders of peak-level factions. It was fair to say that nearly half of the god, Yao, and demon realm's top experts were gathered here. I know. I heard the outsiders are here, said a graceful woman. The outsiders haven't appeared in hundreds of millions of years. Why would they suddenly show up here? Do they want to interfere with our era's affairs? Snorted another man. Since those outsiders have already transcended, why are they still causing trouble here? Everyone angrily rebuked the extraterrestrials' actions. Even though Yang Jian didn't do anything after he appeared, his appearance had indeed thrown them into a state of confusion. It doesn't matter what the outsiders are here for. Right now, the question is whether or not we should continue. If this continues, won't the outer realms affect our plans? The demon emperor muttered to himself in silence. As he listened to the different opinions of the people around him, he felt vexed. After a long time, he looked at a young man not too far away from him. Shouting, "Didn't you say you had something to tell us? Wait a moment, I've already sent someone to look for Xiao Hu." He might be able to explain what I want to say more clearly. At that moment, a ripple of energy rippled through the cave. The people inside raised their guard and looked at the entrance of the cave. Soon, they saw Xiao Hu, who was still wrapped in bandages, walk in from outside. Xiao Hu was slightly taken aback when he saw the people in front of him. "Xiao Hu, tell them what you told me you discovered in the outside," said Xiao Ting. The outside. The expressions of the people around them changed, and the way they looked at Xiao Hu also changed. Chapter 1331. Danger in the outside. After learning that Xiao Hu had been to the outside, their gazes softened somewhat. Who were these people? They were leaders in their respective domains, with countless rulers under their command. A minor figure like Li Hu, who'd just become a ruler, wasn't qualified to join their circle. But if he'd been to the outside, things were different. None of them had actually been there before. From Xiao Ting's tone, it was clear that not only had Xiao Hu survived the outside, but he'd also received information about the outside. Xiao Ting's decision to let him speak here was clearly beneficial to them. "Emperor," said Xiao Hu hesitantly. Not long ago, he'd received word from Xiao Ting that he needed to hurry here. At the time, he'd wondered why the Emperor had sent him to such a remote place. But because it was an order from the Emperor, he didn't dare hesitate. Even though his injuries hadn't fully healed, he rushed here as fast as he could. But now that he was here, what kind of people did he see? Yaoan demons. After fighting Yaoan demons for so many years, Xiao Hu couldn't possibly be mistaken about their auras. He stared at Xiao Ting in astonishment. He couldn't understand why the Emperor would associate himself with outsiders. When they saw Xiao Hu's hesitation, the Yaoan demon experts all looked displeased. Xiao Ting's expression darkened and he rebuked Xiao Hu. "Hurry up and speak." Even in the face of the Emperor's furious roar, Xiao Hu hung his head and said nothing. He couldn't understand why the Emperor, who'd once hated Yaoan demons so much, would associate himself with these people. Ever since 100 years ago, the Emperor's behavior had been bizarre and bizarre. He'd always had a black-robed woman by his side. He paid no attention to the family's affairs. When family members asked about the woman's identity, all they got in return was a thunderous scolding from the Emperor. After that, Xiao Yan had sent people to investigate. They'd learned that the woman was the holy maiden of the demons. Only the family's immediate higher-ups knew about this. At the time, Xiao Hu hadn't believed it. He'd been one of the first to follow the Emperor in his conquest of the world. He couldn't believe that the Emperor would associate himself with demons. But now, not only were there demons and Yao present, but there were also a few peak powers from other divine mountains who wielded absolute power. Why would this group of people gather together at this time? Could it be that the old divine emperor was also participating in the attack on the Shen clan? He didn't believe it. He absolutely did not believe it. "Are you going to tell me or not?" Xiao Ting's face turned red with anger at Xiao Hu's silence. Around his body, one could vaguely see the power of lightning, flickering like a dragon or a snake. Even the surrounding experts could sense Xiao Ting's imposing aura. Although he had stepped down from his position as the Lightning Sovereign Emperor, his cultivation realm was still astonishing. "Old Xiao, why are you so angry?" Kuei Lin chuckled and patted Xiao Ting on the shoulder. Kuei Lin's consolation actually calmed Xiao Ting down. Xiao Hu's pupils constricted. "Since your people don't want to tell us, it's the same if you tell us. We're all on the same boat. How can we not believe you?" "Monarch, you can't say it." Xiao Hu, who was immersed in shock, immediately shouted when he heard this. "Shut up!" A bolt of lightning slammed into Xiao Hu. Xiao Ting's heavy injuries had yet to heal, so he coughed up a mouthful of blood and slumped to the ground, his face pale. He clutched his chest and coughed up blood. He stared at Xiao Ting, his eyes filled with anxiety. He couldn't say it. He'd risked his life to obtain this information for the Xiao family, for the God race. He couldn't share it with the other races. But Xiao Ting said it. Alright, then I'll explain it to my colleagues. I originally wanted Xiao Hu to tell you. He experienced it himself, so he'd be more detailed than me. I never would have guessed this dog would be so disobedient. I've made a fool of myself. Xiao Ting smiled apologetically and nodded at the surrounding experts. They all looked at him as if it didn't matter. They didn't care about the Xiao family's internal affairs. What they cared about was the situation in the outside. You all know about the Xianyuan sword appearing before the new year, right? Everyone nodded. When the Xianyuan sword appeared, all the realms sent their elites to fight for it, but in the end they all returned empty-handed. That's when he went to the outside. He almost lost his life there, but fortunately, he was lucky. Fortunately, he was lucky enough to find a black hole and come back. Afterwards, he told me and Xiao Yan about the outside. What did he say? Asked everyone. He saw primordial behemoths invading the outside. You might not know what they are, but they're the Terminators. They're the race that brought an end to this era. That's what the Xiao family's ancient records say. The outside was attacked by primordial behemoths, so we can roughly determine that the Master of the Stars is dead. The Master of the Stars is dead. The outsider Han Nan's eyes were bloodshot and filled with grief. You saw it yourself. Without the Master of the Stars' support, we can't replenish the barrier's energy. Every round of attacks from the primordial behemoths causes cracks to appear in the barrier. Even though we've sent people to stop them before they attack, the primordial behemoths are too strong for us to handle. There are fewer and fewer of us who can truly fight against the ancient beasts, but it seems like the ancient beasts won't die. One day, the barrier will break, and when it does, we'll be destroyed. Han Nan's grief was clear as day. If the outside wanted to survive, they had to send people to stop the primordial behemoths every time they attacked. His son had died in the last round. Not even his corpse was left behind. That's right. The outsiders were born supremes, but the primordial behemoths were rulers and above. Even though this was the outside, the number of rulers they had was limited. He didn't know how much longer they could hold out like this. A few days ago, the Master of the Stars' son said he received a prophecy from the Master of the Stars. If the outside wants to survive, we need your help. Little friend Yi, please help us in the outer realm escape. I, Han Nan, will never forget your great kindness. Xiao Ting didn't hide anything. Kneeling on the ground, Xiao Hu slammed his head against the ground as if he'd collapsed. Brother Xiao, that means. Kuei Lin and the others' eyes lit up. Xiao Ting chuckled. Chapter 1332. The prerequisites for transcendence. Rumor had it that the Lightning Emperor's Xiao family was the race with the deepest foundations. Many peak-level clans had scoffed at this rumor, but now they believed it. The Terminators were primordial beasts. The only prerequisites for transcendence were the Master of the Stars. None of their clans had even heard of the things Xiao Ting had just told them. Emperor. Xiao Hu buried his head in the ground and clenched his fist. Why was it like this? Why had the old emperor become like this? He'd called the demons and Yao brothers, and he'd revealed all of the Xiao family's secrets. This was information not even the God Emperor had shared with them. Why did he have to share it with them? Xiao Hu had long since fallen apart. They were all absorbed in what Xiao Ting had just told them. Brother Xiao, is the Master of the Stars you speak of the Emperor's star? Asked Kuei Lin. That's right. Xiao Ting nodded. According to legend, the Emperor's star of every era selects a master, and the Master of the Stars is the person most likely to succeed in bringing this era to the next. When the first era was on the verge of destruction, it was the Master of the Emperor's star who helped them transcend, creating the outside. Then the second era. In truth, the second era transcended as well, but they didn't succeed. Xiao Ting narrowed his eyes. The Dragon God's 9 sons, Bai and Jianye, the head of the Nine-Tailed Fox clan, and you, Kuei Lin, didn't you all survive the second era? Kuei Lin's gaze darkened, and he looked at Xiao Ting solemnly. No one knew about this. They'd all survived the second era, and they'd only appeared in the middle of the third era. Some people survived, and that counts as success. Not all of you survived because your era's Master of the Stars was forced to become a star in order to seal the Demon Emperor. That's why a small number of you survived, isn't that right? In response to Xiao Ting's words, Kuei Lin's expression shifted for a long while, then he smiled. Brother Xiao, you've hidden your strength far better than I imagined. But we're all in the same boat. We're all trying to transcend this era. Since you've said it, I won't hide it any longer. I admit that I'm indeed from the second era. With Kuei Lin's confirmation, the news could be considered true. The others stared at Kuei Lin in a daze. They'd never imagined that someone from the second era would exist in this era. Xiao Hu did the same. Gradually, he no longer resented Xiao Ting for revealing everything. Instead, he lay quietly on the ground and listened carefully. Since Brother Xiao knows so much, then does Brother Xiao know who this era's Master of Stars is? It's me. An arrogant chuckle suddenly sounded in the cave. Everyone looked towards the entrance of the cave and found that the cloaked man had appeared in front of them without them noticing. He slowly walked towards the crowd, then took off the hood of his cloak, revealing a sunny face. I am this era's Master of Stars. Compared to his previous unyielding attitude, Han Nan almost knelt on the ground after revealing everything. Yi Zichen stared blankly ahead. He found it hard to digest their conversation just now. The Star Lord was dead. The Outer Realm was in danger. The son of the Star Lord received a prophecy from the deceased Star Lord that he could save the Outer Realms from disaster. Am I the savior of the world? Yi Zichen asked himself. He absolutely wasn't. He'd done everything he could to increase his strength, but in truth, all he wanted was to return to the modern realm with the people he loved. That's what he'd always thought, but now he knew that this era was coming to an end. He naturally didn't want to return to the modern realm, only to die shortly after his era ended. He'd watched helplessly as the primordial beasts devoured his brothers, friends, lovers, and loved ones. He naturally didn't want to die either. What should I do? Yi Zichen furrowed his brows. You agree? Han Nan's eyes lit up. When he saw Han Nan's excitement, Yi Zichen couldn't bear to discourage him, but he also didn't want to give him too much hope. If I can help you, I'll do my best. But don't get your hopes up. Whether or not I can fix this era is another matter. If I help you, never mind, just tell me what I should do. Transcend, said Han Nan in a low voice. Yi Zichen froze. So long as you break through to the level of ruler and transcend, your era will transcend the laws. The power of transcendence is beyond imagination. So long as you don't die. The primordial beasts can't affect your era in the slightest, said Han Nan solemnly. What the hell was this guy talking about? Transcend? Did he even need to say that? Yi Zichen naturally knew the power of transcendence was unimaginable. That was a level above rulers. How could it not be fierce? What he wanted to know was how to transcend. Transcendence was no easy feat, just look at the upper three realms. Peak rulers were everywhere, but no one had transcended after so many years. Even if he was the Emperor Star, he couldn't just transcend just because he wanted to. But Han Nan and the others probably didn't know what to do either. If they did, they wouldn't need him. It seemed he'd have to rely on his own wits and slowly figure things out. We can help you transcend, Han Nan spoke up at that moment. The room instantly fell incomparably silent. In such a secluded environment, even the sound of breathing was ear-piercing. Yi Zichen glared at Han Nan. You know how to transcend? Han Nan nodded. Yi Zichen was speechless. Then why did you come looking for me? If you know how to transcend, hurry up and find someone with a higher cultivation. I'm just a Sky Supreme. Who knows how long it'll take for me to transcend? My era is about to end, and your era won't last much longer either. Am I supposed to cultivate slowly? By the time I reach that level, I'll have destroyed the fourth era long ago. They can't. Han Nan shook his head. Your Yao, demon, and God emperors are all peak rulers. Who knows how long they've been stuck at that level? Given their talents, they'd have taken that step long ago. But have you seen any of them transcend? There's a prerequisite for transcendence. Yi Zichen furrowed his brows. Han Nan nodded. That's right. The prerequisite is celestial fate, and it's the Emperor Star's celestial fate. Isn't Zhou Wu also good? He has celestial fate, and he's the closest to transcending. So long as you get in touch with him, given his personality, he'll be more than happy to work with you. When the time comes, you can use whatever conditions you want to restrict him. Oh right, once he transcends, he'll no longer be restricted. Could it be that you don't want to talk to him because you think his character isn't good enough? Yi Zichen arched his brows. That's one of them. Han Nan nodded noncommittally. But there's another thing. Transcendence requires celestial fate chosen by the Emperor Star. He stole the celestial fate of the 5 elements and thought he could take that final step, but alas. Chapter 1333. My surname is Gu, and my name is Lai. As soon as Han Nan said this, a fierce gust of wind blew outside his window. The plants outside swayed in the wind. Han Nan sat behind his desk, his gaze filled with disdain. This disdain was directed at God Emperor Zhou Wu, and at his wishful thinking of stealing celestial fate in order to transcend. Zhou Wu's fate had been decided the moment he was born. No matter how much he struggled, no matter how much he schemed to defy the heavens and change his fate, it was all in vain. Han Nan's confident tone made Yi Zichen's heart tremble. In terms of cultivation, Han Nan might not even be as strong as Zhou Wu, but he was confident that he could crush Zhou Wu's dreams. He wasn't fated to transcend. No, he wasn't. That wasn't all. Yi Zichen also sensed a hint of hostility in Han Nan's eyes. If he wasn't mistaken, this hostility was directed at Zhou Wu. The two of them weren't from the same world. Han Nan lived in the first era, while Zhou Wu lived in the third era. Yi Zichen had sensed why Han Nan treated Zhou Wu like this from the very beginning, when Han Nan said Zhou Wu had stolen the 5 elements planet's fate. Han Nan was the first era's Emperor Star's auxiliary star. As for what kind of auxiliary star he was, I'm not sure. Furthermore, I heard that the first era's Master of the Stars died 100 years ago because someone had stolen the Emperor Star's fate. Even though that person died, as an auxiliary star, Han Nan and the others couldn't tolerate someone like that appearing. When Yi Zichen heard this, his eyes widened. He couldn't help but come to a sudden realization. Earlier, he'd wondered how a Master of the Stars could possibly die after transcending. To think someone had stolen their celestial fate. Having their celestial fate stolen had directly affected the outside's transcendence. Now, the outside had no choice but to ask him for help. God Emperor Zhou Wu had stolen the 5 elements planet's fate to become the God Emperor. That was why Han Nan was so hostile towards him. Zhou Wu was truly pitiful. He'd schemed to steal celestial fate, and he'd even left his heart in the time corridor. Yet, he still couldn't take that final step. What's more, the outside didn't view him particularly kindly. When Yi Zichen obtained the 5 elements Great Emperor's inheritance, the 5 elements Great Emperor had asked him to avenge him. Yi Zichen had never forgotten it, but the God Emperor's position was too high, so he could only bury it in the depths of his heart. But now, if he could pull in the outer realms, he felt that there was a chance. However, even if they were to really deal with the God Emperor, all of this was a matter for the future. The third era was about to come to an end. The primordial beasts needed experts at the God Emperor's level to defend the third era before Yi Zichen transcended. Mayor Han, the moment Yi Zichen spoke up. Don't call me Mayor Han. If you don't mind, you can call me Old Han or Uncle Han. To tell you the truth, I'm actually the assistant star of the current Planet Lord. When I see you, I can't help but think of the Planet Lord back then, Han Nan said with a bitter smile. Yi Zichen arched his brows. He hadn't expected Han Nan to be one of the Emperor Star's auxiliary stars. The assistant star's position among the stars was not low. The assistant star's mission was to assist the left assistant star in assisting the Emperor Star. According to ancient times, this would be the assistant of the Prime Minister, a third-rank official. If he was in the modern world, he would be the Secretary General of the Prime Minister. At first, Yi Zichen thought Han Nan was just a small fry among the stars, but now, the outer realm still valued him quite a bit. Of course, they didn't treat him with absolute importance. Otherwise, the left assistant star would have come to see him in person. Yi Zichen loved being able to worm his way into a good relationship. Uncle Han, how do I transcend? Time waits for no man. I'm only a sky supreme right now. Although I'm about to become a diviner, there's still a ruler above me. That'll take me countless years to reach. Although my talent isn't bad, if I keep cultivating slowly, I'm afraid I won't be able to transcend before the end of the era. When he saw Yi Zichen's hesitant expression, his eyes flashed with a dark light. How could Han Nan, who'd lived for several eras, not understand what he was trying to say? That's true. Then how about I infuse you with wisdom and help you become a ruler? Yi Zichen's eyes instantly lit up. That's great. If you can help me become a ruler, I'll be able to shorten the distance between transcendence. After that, I'll focus on cultivation. It's not like transcendence is impossible. Before he finished speaking, Yi Zichen saw Han Nan's smile grow wider and wider. His excitement immediately subsided. He'd gotten excited for nothing. Han Nan had been joking with him all along. Yi Zichen pursed his lips. He'd been thinking about becoming a ruler and opening the Yao Ceiling Pagoda. Then, with the Xianyuan sword and the Yao Ceiling Pagoda, he'd be able to do whatever he wanted on the Divine Mountains. When that happened, what about the God Emperor Zhou Wu, the Demon Emperor Kuei Lin, the Yao Emperor Tai? They'd all be little brothers. But Han Nan was just joking with him. None of that was going to happen. You're trying to bait me. Just tell me. When he saw Yi Zichen's dejected expression, Han Nan couldn't help but chuckle. In truth, you've misunderstood the concept of transcendence. Transcendence is above rulers. Isn't that the case? Yi Zichen arched his brows. Of course it is. Transcendence is naturally much stronger than rulers. But that doesn't mean you have to break through from ruler. Transcendence. You can transcend at any level. When the cloak was lifted, a particularly handsome and delicate face was revealed. His entire body was wrapped in a loose cloak, but everyone could see that he had no right arm. At the diviner level, regrowing a severed arm wasn't difficult. This youth was at least a late-stage diviner, yet he hadn't regrown his arm. They couldn't help but find this strange. Losing an arm would have a huge impact on one's formation, hand seals, and combat. However, they were more concerned about what he'd just said. What did you just say? Kuei Lin stared intently at the youth. I'm this era's master of the stars. Before he finished speaking, a disk of stars appeared in the youth's left hand and circled around his palm. During this period of time, there were even people who looked outside. When the astrolabe appeared, the North Star also flashed as if it was responding to it. At the same time, everyone within the cave sensed a faint pressure. This pressure came from the young man in front of him. After all, they were peerless experts who stood at the peak of the world. Every single one of them was a high-level ruler or above. This is the power of the stars. One of the Yao experts couldn't help but frown. This pressure is coming from the stars of the 9 heavens. This youth really was this era's master of the stars. Everyone looked at the youth solemnly. Kuei Lin stared intently at him. I seem to have seen you somewhere before. You're a member of the demon race. Chapter 1334. Enlu. Even though the people standing before them were all experts who could shake the entire 3 realms with a single stomp of their feet, Gu Li still stood before them. He looked them straight in the eye, neither servile nor overbearing. Furthermore, when he introduced himself, He called himself this humble one, not this junior. He placed himself on equal footing with them. In fact, he even felt like he was a bit higher than them. He smiled faintly, looked around, then walked up to the center of the bonfire and sat down. When they saw him sit down, they couldn't help but glance at Demon Emperor Kuei Lin. Gu Li had taken his seat. Gu Li, I remember now. You're the kid with the Chiyu sword. Kuei Lin didn't get angry right away. Instead, he nodded, then his gaze darkened and he looked at Gu Li, his gaze suffocating. You say you're the master of the stars, and I believe 60% of it. But do you know who you are? Do you know who these people are? Do you know who you're talking to? Do you know what tone of voice you're using? Do you know that killing you would be as easy as crushing an ant? Shut up, will you? Gu Li suddenly berated him. Kuei Lin's expression darkened, and the atmosphere in the cave grew heavy. Under this pressure, the other experts couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Gu Li sat in his chair, his face wreathed in a calm smile. Even in front of Demon Emperor Kuei Lin, his expression was as calm as ever. I don't know who you are, and I don't need to know. I don't care to know. All I need to know is that I'm this era's master of the stars. That's enough. Who are you talking to? Do you know who you're talking to? But if a puny demon emperor dares to speak to the master of the stars like that, you'll be the first one I kill after I transcend. Do you think you're fit to talk to me like that? Kuei Lin's face was ashen. He was on the verge of exploding. The onlookers were flabbergasted. To say nothing of anything else, this youth's courage was enough to subdue the other experts. Find your place. Don't think that just because you're the demon emperor you're amazing. In my eyes, you're nothing. Do you understand? You're courting death. Even if you're a Star Lord, I'll grant you your wish. He swung his fist at Gu Li, but when his fist, which seemed capable of shattering mountains and shattering moons, landed on Gu Li's body, it passed right through. Gu Li's body contorted as he sat in his chair. Before long, he returned to his original state. Soul body. The mighty figures in the cave were stunned. None of them had noticed that this was a soul body. Kuei Lin frowned. Like the other experts, he hadn't sensed anything at all. He retracted his fist, narrowed his eyes into slits, and snorted with a livid face. No wonder he dares to be so impudent. It's just a spiritual body. You can tell if it's a spirit body or not. If you didn't make a move, would any of you be able to tell that this is a spiritual body? Gu Li's eyes were still filled with amusement. I don't have time to waste on you. My goal here is simple. You want to survive, and I'm this era's master of the stars. We can work together. Regardless of what happened earlier, Gu Li's words hit the nail on the head. They wanted to survive. If it wasn't for the end of an era, these people wouldn't have gathered together. They all wanted to survive in this destroyed era. The Demon Emperor's gaze was as dark as ever. Gu Li's words had thoroughly infuriated him. The others glanced between the two of them, then couldn't help but try to comfort them. Brother Kuei Lin, let's listen to what he has to say. Even if he resented the Demon Emperor, Kuei Lin couldn't deny that he wanted to survive. He'd survived the Second Era, so he knew full well that only the Master of the Stars could lead this era to transcendence. Since someone had given him a way out of this embarrassing situation, he snorted coldly. His meaning was clear. When they saw the Demon Emperor back down, the others sighed in relief. Then, the graceful woman in the middle of the group smiled. Little brother Master of the Stars, what do you think we should do? You seem to be only at the diviner level. We don't have much time left in this era. Do you want us to capture a few people and give them to you, then? There's no need, interrupted Gu Li coldly. Gu Li cut her off coldly. Just continue what you're doing. As for how to transcend, I'll tell you later. When the time comes, I might need your help, but I might not. The others couldn't help but knit their brows. Gu Li's words were so confusing that they couldn't even fathom what he was trying to say. Then what about working together? Asked one of the Yao experts hesitantly. I'm here to say hello to you. Whether or not I want to work with you depends on the Demon Emperor. Everyone looked at the Demon Emperor. The Demon Emperor knit his brows. Speak. Release Enlil. So long as you let her go, I'll agree to work with you. Once I transcend, I'll definitely give you a place to work with me, said Guli, glaring at them. Kuei Lin smiled coldly and roared, Kid, don't push your luck. Brat, don't push your luck. He'd only asked to release one person, yet the Demon Emperor had reacted so strongly. The surrounding experts couldn't help but be astonished. Guli, on the other hand, stared at Kuei Lin sternly, refusing to budge an inch. They couldn't help but wonder just who Enlil was. How could the Demon Emperor and the Master of the Stars care so much about her? Release Enlil and I'll stand on your side, said Guli, his gaze unwavering. Kid, don't think too highly of yourself. Don't think I don't know that the heavens chose two emperors. You've only taken less than half of the celestial fate. Whether or not you can become the Master of the Stars is still up in the air. What right do you have to negotiate with me? What right do you have? Even without you, we can always find another. It seems you know quite a bit. Guli's expression didn't change in the face of Kuei Lin's accusation. As expected, someone who survived the Second Era is extraordinary. To put it bluntly, you gathered so many people to attack the god race because of Zhou Wu's celestial fate, right? Kuei Lin said nothing. Even if you don't say it, I know what you're thinking. It seems you know that transcendence requires the Emperor Star's celestial fate. You tried to kill me just now because you wanted to seize my celestial fate and transcend for yourself, didn't you? That's not a bad idea, but your thinking is too simple. Zhou Wu has had the Emperor Star's celestial fate for tens of thousands of years. Has he ever taken that step? In terms of talent, do you think he's any worse than you, Kuei Lin? Why can't he take that step? Have you never thought about it? Gu Li's disdainful laughter reverberated in Kuei Lin's ears, but his expression changed dramatically. He stared intently at Gu Li, who was still smiling. At the same time, Gu Li spoke. Are you going to release Enlil or not? Think about it. But if you don't, and I transcend, the first person to die will definitely be you. Are you threatening me? Kuei Lin's expression darkened. She's in my hands. You need to think this through. Of course I know. Gu Li nodded noncommittally, but when he mentioned Enlil, his eyes turned bloodshot. But you need to think this through. Are I threatening you or not? He twisted his neck, rose to his feet, walked up to the Demon Emperor, and patted him on the shoulder. His scarlet eyes glanced at him coolly. Chapter 1335. This was transcendence. Accompanied by a gust of wind, his soul body slowly dissipated in front of everyone's eyes. The experts in the cave looked at Kuei Lin. Just now, Gu Li had made it clear that Kuei Lin was the one to decide whether or not he wanted to work with them. Not only that, but from their conversation just now, they knew that Kuei Lin was hiding many things from them. Cracks began to appear in the alliance that had once trusted each other. Most of the people here were selfish. Otherwise, they wouldn't have betrayed their own clans for the sake of their own interest. Kuei Lin's concealment made them a bit more apprehensive, but no one was willing to shed all pretense of cordiality in a situation like this. If they wanted to survive this new era, they needed to rely on the youth from before. Kuei Lin held the absolute right to negotiate. Demon Emperor! After a long moment of silence, a rough-looking man with green eyes and a full beard broke the silence. We won't ask too many questions. We can pretend we didn't hear what you just said. All we care about is transcendence. If you still want to maintain our alliance, I suggest that you hand that Enlil over to that young man just now. That's right. We're all gathered here for the sake of transcendence, right? Demon Emperor, all you have to do is hand over Enlil to that youth. The others also spoke up as if they were grasping at straws of life. This could indeed be counted as their life-saving straw. No one could escape the end of an era. Now that the Master of the Stars had taken the initiative to cooperate with them, what reason did they have to refuse? Furthermore, the Master of the Stars didn't seem like a good person. They didn't believe that the youth would help them escape their doom for no reason. All he wanted was one person. So what if he gave her up? All of you, shut up. To their surprise, the Demon Emperor roared, his aura surging like a wild beast. His shout made the other allies stop trying to persuade him, but it also wore away the last vestiges of their patience. In an instant, the gazes of the people in the cave changed. They stared coldly at Kuei Lin. After his roar, Kuei Lin sensed the others' gazes and suddenly understood. These people were the leaders of their respective realms. They weren't subordinates he could casually scold. We can still maintain our alliance in the near future, but the outcome will depend on your choice. Demon Emperor, good luck. After glancing at the Demon Emperor, the bearded man left the cave. They were all clan leaders or leaders of top-notch forces. Previously, they had lowered their stance slightly to give the Demon Emperor some face. After all, he was one of the 3 great emperors. It was just that their modesty seemed to have caused the Demon Emperor to forget his original position. In terms of status, they were actually equal. Some of the others left, while others stayed behind. The Demon Emperor sat in front of the bonfire with a sullen expression. He looked at the burning flames and fell into deep thought. If Guli had asked for anyone else, he might have agreed. But why did he want Enlu of all people? Enlu was a woman of the devil race, and was born with the heavenly devil soul body. A heavenly demon soul body would not appear for hundreds of millions of years. Even a demon emperor would not be able to obtain a heavenly demon soul body. In order to capture her, Kuei Lin had schemed and plotted against her clan in secret. He'd even massacred her entire clan. So long as he could obtain Zhou Wu's celestial fate and devour Enlu's heavenly demon soul body, he'd be able to take another step forward. Perhaps after taking that step, he'd transcend. Why did Guli have to want her? Even now, Kuei Lin didn't want to let her go. He didn't care about his allies who'd left. As long as he could take the step of transcendence, everyone else would be useless. I almost forgot to tell you, said Guli. At that moment, Guli's soul body reformed in the cave. The remaining experts didn't say a word, but Guli looked around and smiled. It seems there's been a disagreement among you? That's fine, I came here to help you resolve your differences. Kuei Lin, are you still thinking that even without me, you could always find another Master of the Stars? Let me tell you, that Master of the Stars hates you demons the most. Then Guli's expression shifted. He glanced at the sinister-looking man next to him. And your Flying Serpent clan. His gaze fell on Shouting. And your Shao family. After pointing out these clans, Guli crossed his arms and snorted. And the rest of you. Based on my understanding of that guy, he hates anyone who betrays his own clans. If you want to transcend, your only hope is me. Help me seize celestial fate. Everything is to pave the way for me. That's the only way you'll have a chance at survival. As for whether or not you can seize this opportunity, it's all up to him. With that, Guli's gaze fell on Kuei Lin. I'll give you 3 days to think about it. Are you going to let Enlu go or not? If you let her go, we can talk later. If you don't, you absolutely, positively must not give me a chance to transcend. Guli glanced darkly at the silent Kuei Lin, then smiled and said, Don't worry. Right, let me tell you something you might not know. Transcendence doesn't mean transcending beyond ruler. True transcendence means you can transcend at any level, so long as you take that final step. You can transcend at any level. Yi Zichen looked into Han Nan's eyes and thought back to what he'd just said. He felt like his brain wasn't enough to process everything. What did Han Nan mean just now? Transcendence didn't require you to reach the ruler realm. You could transcend at any level. Didn't that mean even at the spiritual body level, you could become a transcendent expert? Uncle Han, what you just said, That's your misunderstanding of transcendence. You might think that transcendence is the highest realm and that you have to cultivate step by step. But in reality, transcendence's true meaning is to truly break free from the shackles of the laws. Han Nan's words opened a new chapter in Yi Zichen's life. He listened intently, afraid to miss even a single word. From a supreme to a diviner, from a diviner to a ruler. At the end of the day, all of this is within the boundaries of the laws. But transcendence is to break free from the laws. To put it simply, cultivation is a framework. You advance step by step according to that framework. Transcendence is to break free from that framework. As he explained, Han Nan continued to draw on the table. Through his drawings and his explanation, Yi Zichen could say that he truly understood the chill of transcendence. It was like the laws required you to walk forward or backward, but that was all the laws could control. Transcendence was to walk left or right. Once you took that step, you would no longer be bound by the laws.